10 years ago, a sudden wave of zombies appeared and destroyed human life on the planet, followed by a period of apocalypse. In this chaotic scenario, slaughters began to occur every second, whether to obtain resources or to take control of shelters, while some bad people killed just for fun. Yan Zheng appears riding a motorcycle. He is 20 years old, and a year ago he acquired the apocalyptic upgrade system. He explains that the reward given by this system can be used to level up any object and that this changed his fate. Suddenly, the protagonist has a motorcycle accident after colliding with a steel wire stretched across the road. A guy inside a truck appears and says that his partner, who was driving, ended up knocking someone down again. Observing the fallen young man, the men realize he must be a noble due to his clothes and decide to check if they can find anything on the motorcycle. After checking the motorcycle, they say there's nothing interesting. Annoyed, the group leader questions how the protagonist came out empty-handed in an apocalypse and orders his henchmen to punish the young man severely. One of the guys approaches the young man, ready to execute the task, and tries a fatal blow, but he fails to hit the young man and is thrown far away. All the guys are frightened by what they are seeing. After all, they believe the protagonist was no longer alive. Scared, the red-haired man asks who the guy pretending to be dead on the ground is. Zheng gets up and walks toward the group. Then he is questioned about what he did to make the other guy end up like that. He says that before doing anything, he needs to confirm something and asks if they massacred the East Highway camp. Fearlessly, the group leader confirms the question and says that all of his brothers are also involved in this attack. Laughing, they say that not only did they kill the men, but also played with the women of the place. Without any regret, one of the men even says that this is very normal and that he took the lives of 3 from the same family. Yan is disturbed by what happened and says he should fulfill his duty without causing pain to others. But in this case, he promises to make all the guys lose their lives in a painful way. Acting tough, the red-haired man asks if the protagonist believes he can fight the group alone. Suddenly, the guys try to attack Zheng, but he says that kind of attack has no effect on him. Frightened by what he sees, the gang leader wonders if the opponent is bulletproof. Then he pulls out a revolver and points it at the protagonist. He shoots and Yan appears to lose his balance completely. Laughing, the opponent says that the bulletproof power is special, but still doesn't protect the head. To his misfortune, the protagonist recovers and shows that he wasn't affected at all. This drives the group into despair, watching everything with their mouths open. Then Zheng says that now it's his turn to fight. A sword with a blue spell appears on the scene, and in addition to it, the protagonist wields a gun and points it at the group, firing a shot. Suddenly, everyone is hit by a blue smoke and becomes paralyzed while Zheng runs among them. As they search for the young man, the group realizes he has disappeared and they start wondering where he went. Then one of the boys shouts for the others to look behind them. The red-haired leader assesses the attack he just received from the opponent and believes he has no damage. But some of his henchmen begin to notice that their hands are releasing blue energy. Everyone starts screaming and begging for help desperately, while the red-haired boy doesn't understand what is happening. Suddenly, he begins to feel something and panics. Screaming, he says his throat feels like it's burning. Terrified, he starts begging the protagonist to spare his life while asking for forgiveness. Zheng orders the boy to save his foolish apologies and to say them to the king of the underworld when he gets to hell. With the mission complete, he earns 2 more points. The protagonist gets on the motorcycle and upgrades his vehicle using the points he earned. This increases the motorcycle's speed, and he rides off toward the horizon, now able to ride over water. The story goes back to 1 year ago. 2 men approach and wonder where that peasant came from and how he dares to steal food from the Fang family's domain. Injured, the young man says he's been picking fruit there for a long time and that they can't call the place Fang property. Placing a symbol on a tree, the man says that from that moment on, the forest belongs to them. Annoyed, the boy asks how he isn't ashamed to do something like that, but he ends up getting punched in the face. Lying on the ground, he is threatened that if he is seen in the area again, he will be killed. Later, Yan reflects that all the nearby areas are being taken over by the Fang family and that there will soon be no place left for him to stay. Then suddenly, he receives a message from the system notifying him that he has received an upgrade. Confused, the boy doesn't understand what that means. New instructions begin to appear on the screen and survival items are also given to the boy. Looking at what he received, he believes he might even have a chance to survive even without many options. With the razor he received, he shaves his beard and cuts his hair with the dagger he also got. After improving his appearance, he questions what he should do next. Again, the system gives more instructions to the boy. He then realizes that any item can receive an upgrade. Zheng then remembers he has a fruit in his pocket, but upon grabbing it, the boy realizes it is crushed, probably due to the fight earlier. So he decides to use his power on the fruit and asks for it to be upgraded. After a while, he opens his hand again and the fruit has disappeared. Quickly, a tree appears behind the protagonist. Noticing what just happened, the protagonist says that it's really cool. A mission then appears for him to complete, ordering that this time he must kill 20 zombies. As night falls, lying on the tree and eating fruit, the boy thinks that all of this is absolute madness and wonders why he would go after zombies when he's not even full yet. He falls asleep but wakes up after noticing sparks of fire appearing near his location and wonders where that's coming from. The boy quickly realizes it's the tree he's lying on that's on fire. Down on the ground, the two men from the Fang family say they already warned the boy about the risks of staying there, and that the fire is the result of him ignoring the warnings. Irritated, Zheng thinks that as long as the Fang family exists, he will never have peace. Forced to take a drastic action. One of the guys says it's strange for a tree to appear out of nowhere, while the other says they probably just hadn't noticed it before. Distracted by the conversation, they don't realize Zheng is approaching. The protagonist runs and delivers a fatal blow to one of the opponents. Frightened, the other guy pulls out a gun from his waist. Yan tries to stop him from shooting, but the guy fires the revolver without hesitation. However, Zheng manages to dodge and finishes the job with the dagger he received earlier. After that move, the boy thanks in his thoughts the Fang family for reminding him that he can have a better life without them, promising that on that day they burned his treaty, but in the future, he will burn all of the family's century-old businesses. Days go by, and later Yan says he spent the entire morning killing zombies, and because of that, he earned upgrade points, which made him feel the mission was easier than the first time. Accessing the system, he is able to view all of his abilities. Analyzing the panel, the boy says he still has 3 upgrade points left, and that the next thing to do is level up. He explains that there are not only normal zombies in the apocalypse, but also zombies that are very violent and strong, being harder to kill because they have better bodily functions than normal zombies. With a pistol in hand, he says that weapon is not enough to deal with that type of enemy, so he decides to upgrade the revolver. After all the upgrades, he finds it strange that the weapon doesn't look any different on the outside. His thoughts are interrupted when he hears the sound of a gunshot. Going to take a closer look, he sees a member of the Fang family pointing a gun at a boy and shooting right after. He hears the two saying that the dead guy only had to run, and it would have been better if he had been more obedient. Another man appears and asks what they should do with a young girl who was also captured. The pink-haired girl is sitting on the ground, clearly very scared. The leader then responds ironically that he just lost a comrade at that moment, so obviously they need to take care of the girl. Watching from a distance with a gun in hand, Yan listens to what's happening at the scene. He notices that the group has 5 people and 4 rifles, in addition to 1 revolver. Zheng knows he is level 3 and that by adding the critical rate of his weapon, he should have the advantage. A zombie approaches the girl and asks if she will undress herself or if she prefers that he does it for her. The young woman continues crying, and the villain says it's been a long time since he's seen such a beautiful lady like her. Suddenly, as he gets closer to the girl, they are surprised by gunshots coming from the protagonist. With great precision and agility, Zheng hits each one while staying hidden behind the tree. Seeing the boy approaching, the girl is confused as she realizes he defeated the whole group alone. Afraid, she thinks Yan is going to do something to her, but quickly changes her mind since she was saved by him and also finds him handsome. A notification appears in the protagonist's system saying that he now has an emergency challenge. He thinks it makes no sense, since he eliminated all the Fang family soldiers and is sure he did the job right. However, before he can take any action, the girl panics and points to something behind him. A man begins approaching from behind, and jokes, saying now he knows what it feels like to have a bullet in his head, and that he feels great. He also states that there's no way a human ambush can take him down, and that he will eliminate Zheng. Sensing the tension, the zombie mocks and asks if the youngsters are afraid, claiming he hasn't even shown what he's capable of yet. Terrified, the girl covers her mouth and throws up her lunch, finding the opponent extremely disgusting. Trying to pull herself together, she steps away. Then the zombie launches an attack and tries to strike Yan with full force. He jokes that humans are like sheets of paper to him. After getting Zheng, he goes after the girl, but he feels his arm get stuck and says that this trick is really annoying. He quickly realizes that the arm being held is actually the protagonist gripping him after blocking his punch, and he is shocked. Yan manages to push the man and delivers a blow that throws him far away. In disbelief, he can't understand how a human can be so strong and notes that Zheng doesn't even look like a zombie soldier. Looking ahead again, he notices that Zheng has disappeared from the spot. Pretending to be clueless, the pink-haired girl raises her hand as if she also has no idea where the boy went. The zombie is then surprised by the protagonist, who points a gun at his head. Nervously, Yan says he'll ask only once what exactly a zombie soldier is. Scared, the villain says it's just like the name suggests. They are zombies with high-level military training. With his hands on the ground, he still can't understand why that boy is so strong, but decides to keep giving information to distract him. Zheng asks who created the zombie soldiers. In response, his opponent says they were created by Fang Wenying, the chief scientist of the Fang family's research lab. The protagonist is bothered upon hearing the Fang name again, thinking the opponent concludes he'll confuse the boy further to gain a chance to defeat him. But before he can do anything, the boy shoots, leaving the opponent confused as to why he fired so suddenly. Lying on the ground, he says that young people don't want to talk about fighting. However, realizing his brain system wasn't hit, he decides to pretend to be dead, but ends up getting shot several more times in the upper part of his body. While shooting, Zheng yells the name of the Fang family and the zombie soldiers, showing he is furious. Afraid, the pink-haired girl watches the scene and thinks the protagonist is terrifying. A system screen appears and says that Yan has finally completed the challenge and earned more upgrade points. Satisfied, he decides to upgrade himself. Noticing that the boy is looking at something, the girl asks what it is since she can't see anything. Zheng just dodges the question and says that now that she is safe, she can leave the area. However, the girl says she wants the boy to take her back to her village. Out of time, the protagonist says he can't since he's not a bodyguard, deciding to leave and abandon the girl. Desperate, the girl shouts, talking about what might happen if she meets bad people along the way and clings to Zheng's legs. Checking the system, the boy realizes he can earn upgrade points if he takes the girl safely to her village. So he accepts the next mission. After walking, they reach a place with abandoned cars, and the girl asks what they're doing there. Zheng says he's looking for a car, while the girl says that all the vehicles there have been broken for at least 10 years. Ignoring her, the protagonist says he found something that will do the job. He walks over to a car he believes is in better condition. The young woman jokes, saying she must be blind because she can't see the engine. The boy places his hands on the car and begins to cast some sort of spell. With a strong blue light, the girl asks what's happening and says that at this rate, she'll go blind for real. After the light fades, she is completely shocked by what she sees. The abandoned car looks brand new, as if it just came out of a dealership. In disbelief, she screams that it can only be an illusion. Thus, both continue their journey inside the brand new car. While the boy drives, the girl says it's unusual to see people with a working car during the apocalypse, and that the boy not only saved her, but also has the ability to turn trash into treasure. Zheng says he's not a hero, but rather a wanderer driven mad by the Fang family. Finally, the girl introduces herself as Xiaoqi, and the boy also says his name. The conversation is interrupted when a rock flies toward the car. The protagonist tells the girl to hold on tight and makes a sharp maneuver. Frightened, she asks what's going on. After dodging the rock and looking back, they see a violent zombie made of stone approaching the car. That zombie, playing like a baseball player, hurls a rock with all his fury at the duo's car. Yan Zheng begins turning the wheel desperately and manages to dodge the attack. Sitting beside him, Xiaoqi comments that zombie is often seen in that area. Outraged, the dark-haired boy asks why she didn't tell him that earlier. Sweating, the girl says she just remembered. Trying to escape the mess, the boy says they need to get rid of the zombie quickly and asks which road he should take. Responding, the pink-haired girl says the best path is the one on the right, even if it's a little unstable. Going against her advice, the boy steps on the gas and takes the road to the left. Terrified, Xiaoqi warns that road leads directly to a broken bridge. With red eyes, the boy says that in that case, they'll crash and burn together. Desperate, the girl begs him to unlock the door and let her out. Smiling, the protagonist says he promised to take her home, so getting out halfway is not allowed. He continues accelerating the car while the violent zombie throws more and more rocks at the vehicle. Approaching the end of the road, the remains of the bridge and a wide gap with a river flowing below become visible. Determined, Yan Zheng doesn't slow down and continues forward, even with the imminent fall. In the passenger seat, the young woman starts screaming while covering her face with her hands. Giving a wicked smile, the protagonist extends his hand outside and with his power rebuilds the bridge as they cross it. Looking through the window, the girl stammers, asking how that's even possible. Without answering, the boy turns around and starts heading toward the zombie. Crying, Xiaoqi asks what he thinks he's doing. Extending his hand outside again, the boy shouts at the creature and tells it to come to him. The monster, in turn, prepares another rock ball and gets ready to throw it. However, to his misfortune, the ground beneath his feet begins to crack, making him fall into the river. A new achievement appears on Zheng's panel, informing him he has gained another level up point. Mouth open, the pink-haired girl asks how he managed to pull that off. In response, the boy says his experience bar didn't change, which means the violent rock zombie wasn't defeated. Curious, the girl asks what an experience bar it is. Stepping on the accelerator again, the protagonist simply says they should hurry before they get attacked again. Xiaoqi says that probably won't happen because all the violent zombies in that area have a certain activity limit, and that's how she and her group avoid them to collect resources, of which 80% are sent to the Fang family. Outraged, the boy asks why the family gets so much for free. Answering, the girl says that in exchange for the resources, her village receives protection from the zombies since they can't defend themselves. Still irritated, Yan Zheng says it's no surprise the Fang family does that kind of thing. Suddenly, on the road ahead, two cars appear. Surprised, the young woman says that is the Fang fleet. The cars pass side by side and the boy, showing not a hint of intimidation, stares firmly at the man in the other vehicle. Astonished by such boldness, Fang Su yells that the brat in the other car looked at him and orders the driver to turn around and follow them. Olsen says there's no need for that since they still need to go to other villages to collect resources. Annoyed, the young man asks if she's telling him how he should act. The resource guard then says she's just warning him that if they arrive late to the city, they'll miss an important appointment. Satisfied with what he heard, the boy says that in that case, they can let it go and move on to the next village. Far from there, in a place full of containers, the protagonist stops the car. Opening one of the large metal doors, an old man appears and wonders what that noise could be. To his surprise, his granddaughter gets out of the car waving. Everyone is happy and relieved at the girl's arrival. Approaching her, her grandfather says with tears in his eyes that he thought she was gone forever. In response, the young woman says she's fine and made it safely thanks to Yan Zheng, so he deserves a reward. Speaking quietly, the old man says that the Fang family's resource agent just left the place, taking with him everything they had. Ashamed, Xiaoqi approaches her hero and warns him that she'll have to find another way to reward him. Opening the car door, the boy says it's not necessary as he already fulfilled his original purpose. His only request is that she tell him where the nearest zombies are. In response, the young woman says he needs to follow the pointed direction for half an hour to find what he's looking for in the mountains. He just needs to be careful as the place also harbors violent and problematic zombies. Showing no fear, the boy simply says you should leave the task of exterminating zombies to him. With blushing cheeks, the young woman says that will be a huge help. Smiling, the boy realizes he was right and missions he receives from others also become system missions. Watching the car drive away, Xiaoqi thinks to herself that she doesn't know why, but the boy seems very trustworthy. Her grandfather approaches and asks what his name was, and in response, his granddaughter says she already told him the boy's name is Yan Zheng. Laughing, the old man says he was referring to the name of his great-grandson. The young woman runs off while asking why he's asking that kind of question. Unbothered, the old man shouts, asking again if she's already thought of a name. And looking at the car moving away, he says the boy is truly brave to head to the mountains completely alone. Arriving in the forest, the protagonist earns another level up point and uses it right away. Looking at his panel, he realizes he can still get hurt, since he doesn't have resistance to all types of attacks. Suddenly, zombies begin to emerge from the trees. Without a second thought, Zheng grabs his dagger and starts eliminating them one by one. Then he chooses to upgrade his pistol, which becomes an epic gunner's pistol that causes his level up points to run out. Unexpectedly, a spear flies toward his back, which makes him lose balance and almost drop his weapons. Thinking to himself, the boy is surprised by the strength of the impact as he sees someone standing right in front of him. That someone is an elite violent zombie named Glory. Intrigued, the young man thinks it's the first time he's seen a violent zombie with a name, and she seems very strong. Without hesitation, Glory spins her spear between her fingers and hurls it with great force toward the boy. Yan Zheng, using his speed, manages to dodge the attack, and the tip of the spear causes only a small cut on his face. The weapon continues its path and pierces through the trunk of a tree. Using his epic gunner's pistol, the boy begins firing at the enemy. Glory, in turn, uses only her fists to defend herself, showing that she's really strong. However, one of the bullets wounds her and she realizes she can't use her body as a shield in this situation. She then starts running to dodge the bullets. Observing this behavior, the young man concludes that his opponent, besides being strong, is quite intelligent and is not fighting purely on instinct. Very different from what the Fang family has been saying around. The spear reappears, and this time in a curved throw, which surprises the protagonist. Placing his dagger in front of his body, he tries to lessen the impact, but the spear breaks his blade in half and hits him squarely, throwing him toward another tree. Screaming in pain, he understands that he cannot give up and, with great courage, pulls the spear out of himself. His opponent appears and attacks again, not giving him even a moment to breathe. The protagonist starts running to avoid being hit by the strike. Thinking to himself, the boy concludes that his spear shouldn't be able to change direction on its own as it seemed to do. After dodging the attack, Zheng starts shooting again with his pistol, this time aiming at the trees. The bullet ricochets off the branches and hits Glory, who didn't seem to expect an attack like that. Hearing a grunt, the boy thinks that this time he hit dead on. And still holding the weapon, he begins to approach the tree where his enemy seems to be hiding. But to his surprise, the elite zombie seems to have fled. Following the blood trail from the wound caused by his bullet, the boy arrives at a large cave, which appears to be the creature's lair. Entering the place, the boy finds 3 items: a picture frame, a child's shoe, and a medal. Looking at the photo more closely, he sees 2 people, a woman who seems to be Glory and a boy. Then, slightly confused, he wonders why a violent zombie would keep those things there if it's not supposed to have memories of the past. Suddenly, his opponent reappears, ready to strike him from behind. Without thinking twice, the boy turns around, points his gun, and starts shooting while dodging the spear strikes. Interrupting the fight, a car with a cage containing Glory's son begins to drive away, leaving the zombie desperate. Even wounded, the creature runs toward the vehicle, hoping to reach it. Elsewhere, nearby in the village where Xiaoqi lives, Fang family cars are parked. Their soldiers approach and point their weapons at the pink-haired girl. Extremely irritated, Fang Su asks the girl and her family where the person responsible for stealing his sports car is. Thinking to herself, the girl notes how shameless the boy is for talking about someone else's car as if it were his own. Putting his hand on his face, the young man in the yellow jacket says he's furious that the villagers are covering for the person he's looking for. Another car arrives, and walking toward the cage covered with a cloth, he says he has something to show everyone. Shocked, Xiaoqi wonders if the one inside the previously covered cage might be the violent zombie that recently attacked her village. Fang Su confirms and warns that if no one gives him what he wants, the girl will become monster food. and grabbing his radio, he orders his sniper to shoot anyone who moves, confused when no one responds. At the top of the mountain, Yan Zheng observes someone calling on the radio, who appears to be the guy he just eliminated with a spear. Picking up the weapon, the boy realizes that Sue is using Glory's maternal instincts to control her, stealing resources from the villagers in exchange for protection, even though he's the one putting them in danger. Down below, Shooter orders the pink-haired girl to get into the cage, saying that if she keeps stalling, he will shoot without mercy. However, the one who gets shot is him, surprising his allies who begin to fire back. Trying to protect himself, the young man from the Fang family wonders how his sniper could have been defeated so easily. Perfectly positioned on the mountain, the boy realizes he can take a clear shot at him, but suddenly, a grenade flies toward him. Without dropping his weapon, he dodges the explosion and starts descending the slope while continuing to fire. Desperate, the young man in the yellow jacket orders his employee to hurry and drive away. They begin to pull away and a warning pops up on his watch, saying that he's too far away. Unbothered, the boy says that, in any case, the bomb inside the little violent zombie is about to be activated. A countdown begins and an explosion happens inside the cage. Glory's sun turns to dust and completely enraged by the loss, her eyes glow a vivid red. Using her strength, a zombie breaks open the cage door and runs toward the car, which she can still see thanks to her special power. With her spear in hand, the creature throws the weapon with all her fury in the direction of her enemies. Inside the car, Fang Su only regrets having lost control over Glory, who used to be a useful and obedient tool to him. Then he realizes that something seems to be coming his way. The driver checks the rearview mirror, but it's already too late, and an explosion occurs. Yan Jing approaches and realizes that his opponent was definitely holding back when they fought earlier. The zombie reappears and he has no choice but to aim the weapon he's holding in her direction. Intrigued, the young man wonders when she got behind him, concluding that if the creature wanted to eliminate him, she would have done it. Sweating, he questions whether he should shoot. But to his surprise, Glory does not attack him. On the contrary, she asks him to end her suffering, and then to make the Fang family pay for all the evil they've done. Afraid of being attacked by his enemy's spear, the boy obeys and shoots. Realizing too late that she wasn't going to attack him, she just scared him into doing what she wanted. Upset, the protagonist promises he will remember the zombie's words and make the Fangs pay for everything. Suddenly, his panel shows that he completed the mission and acquired items such as Glory's unpurified eyeball and her spear. Returning to the village, he speaks with Xiaoqi, telling her and her family they can keep the cars and weapons to defend themselves. The young woman then asks if he wouldn't like to stay and live with them. In response, Zheng says he would love to, but the last time he thought about that, his tree was burned. So if he doesn't leave and do something, his problems might knock on the door after a few days of peace. Starting the car, the boy says he hopes to see her again someday. As Aoki then tells him to go ahead, saying she's sure he'll succeed and reach his goals. Thus, the boy leaves, with his next stop being the City of Dawn. However, he gives up after realizing he forgot something: to eliminate the violent rock zombie. Using the spear that belonged to Glory, he attacks, determined to eliminate the enemy with a single blow. But suddenly, he notices that something seems to be approaching the monster at high speed. That something, or rather someone, is the co-leader of the 10th Guard team, Wu Fenzhen, who says after defeating the zombie that it was trash, then complains on his radio, saying some idiot lied by claiming the monster was strong. Suddenly, his radio goes flying, because the monster was still in the fight, grabbing the warrior by the leg and swinging him through the air, finishing the attack by throwing the man with all of his strength against a wall of rocks. A cistern window opens, stating the condition of the man who suffered several fractured bones and had his corruption level increased to 60%. Yan reflects that Wu's strike was actually very good, but the monster reacted in time, creating a protective stone layer. Suddenly, the zombie prepares to strike, throwing a rock at the man. But before it can, a spear hits its head, exploding it and knocking it backward. We see that the armor on its face was shattered by this explosion, and Yan says that now is his chance to attack. Wasting no time, the boy fires his rifle directly at the monster's face, then activates his rapid successive shots technique. Several bullets from different directions hit the zombie's head non-stop. Thus, the violent zombie is exterminated and the boy gains 3 level points. Fenzhen wakes up shortly afterward, desperately asking what happened. He looks at the hero and wonders if it was that boy who defeated such a powerful monster. Observing his armor, he comments that it looks like his team's uniform, but without a badge and without zombie soldier energy. Finishing his reasoning, he concludes that it's impossible for a normal person to have defeated that boss. So it must have been that he destroyed the monster's brain system. Yan reflects that the man is probably already dead, realizing he must be a zombie soldier. Wu asks Yan to show his pass, as he believes the protagonist is part of his squad. The hero then uses the system to upgrade his document, turning it into a universal pass to trick the guard. Intrigued by the very high number, the man asks if the protagonist is some kind of rookie on the team. Taking the opportunity, the young man simply confirms. The soldier approaches and says that if he keeps working hard, he too will be able to defeat a monster like that easily. Ending the chat by saying that today is the boy's lucky day and he can take his luxury car back to the city. Keeping up his disguise, the young man gets in the car and they leave the area. After a while, they spot a sign saying bungalow with lake view 10% discount. Yan reflects that infiltrating the Fang family was easier than he imagined. The soldier explains that only elite members use cars and that regular members ride bicycles, while the boy thinks his car is much better. Wu continues by saying that if the protagonist defeats more monsters, he'll be able to rise in rank until he reaches a position as cool as his. Paying close attention to the conversation, the boy thinks that if he used only 2 points, he could rise to the heavens compared to that soldier. Shortly after, we can see the city walls, which are enormous and heavily guarded. We can even see that these walls have super heavy weapons positioned on watchtowers. Our hero asks about a phalanx, questioning whether zombies can fly. The soldier says not only can they fly, but also swim and escape very quickly, adding that no rookie is allowed to enter the city, but the boy would be an exception. Inside a barracks, other soldiers announce the arrival of the co-leader. One of the soldiers asks about his recommendation to Wu, who replies saying it was annoying that he defeated the monster with a single blow. The boy is impressed, since that monster should be at a similar level to Glory and not easy to defeat. Curious, the soldier asks about Glory, who was mysteriously defeated, stating that they don't know anyone who could have done that. A gray-haired woman arrives at the scene, greeting everyone and saying she's never seen that boy before, referring to Yan. Wu introduces our hero and presents his companions, Baozi and the white-haired girl, who is the third most powerful on the zombie team. He leaves our boy in Baozi's care, who says he'll do a great job guiding the rookie. They walk away, chatting about how the boy met the co-leader and whether he has any connection to the city. Watching them leave, the girl comments that our hero is very charming and the soldier just scoffs in response. The extras in the background begin betting on how long the rookie will survive, with all of them betting a week or less. Baozi continues showing Yan around, presenting the Fang family village where only the leaders are allowed to live. He also shows him a huge building with many identical rooms. That building was where the commoners lived, overcrowded and cramped, a structure known as the birdcage. Yan comments that the place seems really good compared to where he's lived before, making his companion laugh since that wasn't the plan. The protagonist was going to live in an even worse place, and Baozi points out where, a kind of native hut in the middle of nowhere. This greatly irritates Yan, who starts shouting, asking why he should live in such a simple hut. Bai explains that newcomers to the city need to participate in a zombie attack on their second day to qualify, adding that a soldier who might live only 3 days doesn't need to live in a fancy place. Our hero sits down while his companion explains the date, location, and time he must show up for the test. Bai reflects that the boy seems to have chickened out a lot, thinking he probably won't survive even 1 hour. But Yan reflects to himself that things are finally starting to get interesting. The next day, in front of a half-destroyed building, the co-leader explains the situation to the rookies, stating that their test is to destroy all the zombies in that building. 1 person per floor, and the first 3 to clear their floor will get a recommendation for an elite team. One of the extras comments that there's an idiot among them. He was referring to the protagonist for not carrying any weapon, and his companion also mocks the boy. Yan ignores it, reflecting that the way the family conducts the tests is strange. After all, sending unprepared soldiers is extremely cold-blooded. But when he stops to think about the mission timer, he concludes it must all be Wu Fenzhen's doing. Inside the building, we can see extras fleeing from zombies and screaming for help, while others weren't so lucky. In an evaluation room, it's reported that 7 fighters have been eliminated, leaving only 13. Wu says that this time, apparently there isn't a single good rookie, and probably all of them will be eliminated except Zhang. Then we cut to the mansion and see a zombie being thrown back after being shot several times. An extra present comments that that was the last violent one, and that it was hard to finish off that zombie. Now finally the floor is clean. This feat was accomplished by Zhang Ya. All the zombies dissolve in front of him as he laments not having counted how many there were in time. Excited, Zhang picks up the walkie-talkie and checks in with Fenzhen, wanting to know his position in the ranking. Wu replies that he better hurry and climb another flight of stairs. Frustrated, the man runs up the stairs, wondering who could possibly be better than him since he had seen that everyone else was a rookie. Arriving on the floor, he sees other newcomers and wonders why they are blocking the way. He asks a guy if they had finished cleaning their floors. The guy denies it, so he asks why everyone is there. The extra explains that the reason is that the man in front of him defeated all the zombies on all floors. This greatly surprises Zhang, who looks at the scene in terror. He sees a sea of defeated zombies on the ground, with Yan sitting on top of a pile of them, who defeated all those zombies in just a few minutes. Zhang opens his mouth in shock, wondering how that man did all of that with his own hands. Meanwhile, in the monitoring cabin, Wu punches the wall, realizing he was wrong about the rookie. He looks back and tells them to release the thing, and the request is immediately granted. We can see that something is approaching at extreme speed toward the protagonist. He looks to see what it is, and we can see the silhouette of a winged figure similar to an insect. Smashing through the window, claws head straight for Yan's face. All we can see is a trail of constant destruction sweeping across the entire floor. Wu comments that it's a shame he had to do this, but one of the competitors was the son of someone important and had to win. Because of that, his future as a great leader would depend on that little master. Until something surprises him. The monster was held back by the hero. Seeing the scene, the co-leader praises such ability, but there is still something more to that insect zombie. The creature lets out a huge scream, producing sound waves that make the entire place tremble. Our hero quickly pulls back after taking part of that blow. Apparently, he took considerable damage, losing 40 hit points. It reflects that he thought the fight would be easy due to the monster's speed and strength, but didn't expect that kind of power, until he looks to the side and notices another competitor. That competitor was Zhang, who reflects that he had received noise-canceling headphones from Fenzhen just to deal with this situation, until his headphones suddenly disappear. Our hero had borrowed the headphones for a while and tests them by firing upward, with Zhang shouting for him to wait. Yan vanishes into thin air in the blink of an eye, and the soldier is left not understanding anything. Wu begins mocking the move, saying that even with the headphones suppressing the noise, a point-blank hit would still be fatal. However, the speed of movement impresses the co-leader, who thinks it's almost like a flash of light. The insect zombie flies around the building searching for the boy, placing one of its claws on a window and using its sound waves like a radar to locate him, finding him on the rooftop and quickly heading in his direction, hovering above the boy and looking at him with an extremely sadistic gaze, then immediately delivering its sonic blow with a scream at point-blank range. This blow is so powerful that it shatters all the windows of the building beneath them instantly. The strike was so absurd that it even began to break the walls of the structure, breaking its foundations and causing it to collapse to the ground. Outside, far away, Zhang tells Wu that he was very lucky to be pulled out in time, commenting afterward that even if the structure didn't fall, the boy would have been blown up anyway, which the co-leader confirms. Wu picks up a phone to follow what was happening with a kind of drone. The drone flies over the building, observing the destruction and the monster as it searches for the boy. In the place where he should have been, only a void remains as if his body had been disintegrated. Wu sighs in relief, saying that finally Yan has become just a pile of meat. However, in the blink of an eye, something catches the insect zombie's attention, and it immediately looks back. But before it could even think of reacting, it gets shot in the head and sent flying. The monster hits the ground all at once, creating a crater due to the impact area of the blow. And when it looks to see how it was hit, it notices a silhouette in the distance approaching. The hero descends at high speed on top of the monster, ending any chance it had of winning. We can see the zombie's head with a mark showing where the shot came from. Yan wonders if the monster's helmet was some kind of bulletproof armor, surprised that his bullet didn't penetrate. The zombie grins upon hearing these words until its expression changes drastically when the protagonist decides to use another weapon. He grabs his sniper rifle and fires point blank at the zombie, blowing up the floor where it was standing. Wu and Zhang are stunned by what they just witnessed, watching the scene through the phone. The code leader angrily questions how the boy managed to dodge and counterattack so quickly and at such a short distance. He wonders if the headphones helped the boy withstand the attack, but knows that no headset could handle such a powerful strike. Wu begins to panic when he stops to think that he has no idea where the boy even got those headphones from. Suddenly, we hear a sound coming from the roof of the building, and Yan falls behind Zhang seconds later. He wonders why he suddenly felt so afraid out of nowhere. Looking back, he sees the protagonist handing over his headphones and saying he upgraded them. The soldier says there's no need to be so courteous, as his were just earbuds, so obviously those headphones belong to the protagonist. Later that day in the afternoon, in front of a coffee shop, our boy was relaxing until someone caught his attention. That someone was Baozi, who gives him a motorcycle while saying it's the most he can offer, as they were out of options and his team was weak. He also adds that he would give the protagonist a phone, and the dorm keys and money were in the electric car. Our hero reflects on how that man was once very arrogant, but is now strangely being very nice to him. He asked Baozi if he could tell him where the Fang residence was, and he says the place is near the city center, adding that if Yan gets close to the place, he will be treated as a threat and soldiers will shoot him. Yan asks if the security level is really that high. His companion then says that 5 years ago, one of the family members was attacked, and after that, the security level was increased. He asks the protagonist to be careful as he rides off on his motorcycle. On the way, Yan reflects on his goal to gather information about the Fang family and their strength to take advantage and level up. He remembers the moment when he tried to upgrade Glory, but didn't have the level or the necessary quest for it. Then thinks about how he's no longer gaining experience from defeating normal zombies after reaching level 5. The young man then concludes that he needs to face high-level monsters, so he won't need to sneak into the anti-violence squad. He quickly passes by a weapon shop, then notices and decides to go back to check it out. Yan looks impressed by the place and already enters, saying he couldn't let this opportunity pass. We can see several firearms and ammunition, with the protagonist saying that nothing like this can be found outside the city. Yan says excitedly that this even looks like heaven, reflecting that if he bought them and upgraded them, his level would skyrocket. He goes to the counter and very enthusiastically says he wants all the heavy weapons, ordering them to all be on the table in front of him in 1 minute. The clerk, a bald and slightly short man, looks at him in silence while adjusting his dark glasses. Then we see that the protagonist got beaten up and thrown out of the place, with the angry man complaining that he didn't have any money. Our hero reflects that he spent so much time outside the city that he lost track of money, but luckily managed to buy a few things. He had bought a silencer, and thinking to himself away from the store, says that it wouldn't completely mute the sound, but the enemy wouldn't hear it. Observing a kind of military base with jets, helicopters, and even tanks, the boy reflects on how powerful their weapons are, until he sees a zombie in armor similar to a samurai, while saying in his thoughts that those were the Fang's strongest squad, adding that none of them were below the co-leader's level, making it clear how the family had ruled the city for so long. The boy takes off his vest and throws it on the ground, declaring that he's ready to take the necessary actions. He grabs his rifle similar to an avant-scar, points it upward, and pulls the trigger, saying that he won't return empty-handed as he fires a bullet into the sky. We can see a fighter jet in the base with our protagonist trying to examine it, but it was still level 15. He tries the same with the tank, but also fails, with the required level being 10. The hero comments that he only needs 2 more experience points to be able to take the tank, so he decides to go after the zombies present there. He draws the attention of one of the zombies and plans to lure it to a remote location to fight without attracting the rest of the family. Yan fires a shot off into the distance and moves away from the area with the samurai zombie following him. The zombie tries to attack him with a blade but is quickly blocked by the hero. Even so, the boy is impressed by the speed and says the zombie can keep up with him even when he's using his abilities. He comments that he would have been dead if he hadn't used his level points as he summons his spear. Looking confidently at his opponent, a bluish energy fills his body. The zombie jumps toward him, preparing a vertical strike with its katana, which is blocked immediately by the hero's spear. In a counterattack, Yan tries to strike vertically at the zombie, who dodges, causing the attack to bounce off the helmet. Our hero comments that the armor really is tough, but even so, both continue trading blows with each other, until Yan quickly spins his spear and lands a clean hit on the monster's face, sending it backward and shattering its mask. A mask that reveals the horrifying face of the zombie. The protagonist reflects that the opponent doesn't stop staring at him, feeling certain that aura was definitely from a zombie. He throws his spear directly at the opponent's face, piercing through it, thinking to himself that this monster truly gave him some good experience points. But before he could even begin to process anything else, 2 more zombies come rushing at him, ready to attack. Quickly, Yan picks up the katana of the monster he had just defeated, kicking it up from the ground into his hand, and in a reverse grip, he swiftly blocks the blow of both swords simultaneously. However, the impact causes his hands to tremble due to the monster's strength, making him think about the power of his opponents, who are clearly on a different level, enough to leave his hand numb from the impact. The boy stares at the monsters, and they do the same, circling the protagonist and preparing to attack. Yan quickly summons his pistol, and immediately, one of the zombies charges at him. The zombie makes a horizontal slash with its sword, which is also blocked by the hero. Seeing that the boy is distracted, the other zombie leaps at him to strike. But before it reaches him, our hero shoots its helmet, sending it flying backward. That was Yan's strategy. Even if that shot didn't finish the monster, at least it would incapacitate it for a while. Wasting no time, the monster in front of him tries to land a direct kick. But the protagonist reacts by tossing away his pistol and using his hand to grab the zombie's leg. Next, he delivers a kick to the monster's head, slamming its face into the ground. Then he retrieves his weapon and prepares to shoot at the damaged part of the zombie's helmet. The shot lands perfectly, with a system window alerting that the zombie has been defeated. The system alerts that the boy has obtained the zombie's weapons and armor, and Yan laments that the armor is too heavy. While wondering how the zombies can even use them, he gets excited to test his new skill, violent zombie enslavement. A blade comes straight toward the hero's face, but he dodges to the side, easily evading the attack. And with a quick movement and 2 precise slashes, Yan ends his opponent with a fatal blow. A system window opens, stating that the zombie is ready to be enslaved. But before the boy can take action, another wave of zombies appears, making him thankful that he'll earn even more points. The battle continues, with several strikes flying through the air and the system window alerting that his level keeps rising one after another. Our hero appears calm, observing his energy while checking his level and points. He reflects that he won't use his upgrade now, preferring to save it for when he encounters a zombie soldier or a more violent zombie. Until suddenly, a chill runs down his spine. The young man quickly turns around to see what made him feel that way. Spotting a fully armored monster of unknown level, a zombie boss, captain of the heavy machinery cavalry. Yan reflects that since heavy cavalry uses horses, these monsters should technically use large machines. Until the zombie seems to grab something, and it really is something heavy. The monster pulls from its back a massive machine gun loaded with ammunition and ready to fire. This terrifies our hero, who stares in disbelief at the scene, unable to accept that a monster like that would have such a heavy weapon. Without wasting time, the zombie starts firing non-stop, with the boy trying to run for his life. Yan fires a shot toward the tank and teleports in its direction, landing right on top of it. He comments that he won't be able to defeat that monster like this, but at least he'll take the tank. But unfortunately, since he's not level 15 yet, he doesn't have the points to power it up as he looks at the jet beside him. The zombie approaches the area and is surprised not to find the protagonist among the tanks. A little farther away, our protagonist reflects that he managed to gain a few levels as well as securing the tank, until something catches his attention and he uses his X-ray vision to see what's going on. The boy points his weapon in the direction of the presence while shouting that whoever it is won't be able to hide even behind the trees. That someone was Nan Yu, the gray-haired girl from before, who praises the boy's perception. Instantly, Yan already asks why she's following him, with the girl responding by calling him clever. Next, with another question, he asks since when she has been tracking him. Nan then answers mockingly, asking him not to be so threatening, because he's making her feel like she's going to be devoured alive. She adds that her intentions are good, but the protagonist doesn't quite trust her and asks what she means by that. The gray-haired woman replies that she knows he wants to bring down the Fang family and that she can help him do that. Yan replies that he doesn't believe one of the guards would do that and adds that if she were unhappy, she could just leave. But the woman answers that the reason she's offering help is simply because with him it would be possible to destroy the family once and for all. In another location at dawn, Yan asks why he was brought there, apparently under a bridge. Nan replies that she brought him so he could see the depth of her hatred for the Fang family. Showing him a tombstone, our hero asks who's buried there, with the woman replying that it's her blood debt. She explains that 10 years ago, when the zombie wave started, the Fang family took control over the entire city, quickly seizing all the resources for themselves, and everyone else had no choice but to try to get into the city and live obeying the family's rules. Everyone was forced to work in exchange for a few crumbs of food and were also forced to participate in zombie experiments. Those who survived the experiments were forced to fight zombies to climb the city's social ranks, and they no longer had to worry about where to sleep, what to eat, or being exposed to harsh elements. Yan asks if that in itself wasn't a good thing, but the woman goes on to say that the dark side of all of this is that everyone who was transformed followed the same path toward ruin. She talks about her brother, Feng, who was turned into a zombie 5 years ago and rose to the rank of major. He had a single goal in becoming a zombie soldier: to give a better life to the family and the city. Her brother was a warrior who didn't care about his own life, so he leveled up quickly, but after opening an internal door in the Guardian team, something very unexpected happened, and her brother began to transform into something much worse, assuming an unrecognizable form like a mix of several different monsters. In the end, apparently he went into berserk mode, and they had no choice but to kill him and return his dog tag to her. She says she didn't get anything of her brother, she could only give him a burial using his dog tag as a symbol of his presence. Yan uses his X-ray skill to look inside the grave, and indeed the only thing present is his soldier's dog tag. He reflects that normally dog tags come in pairs, which wasn't the case here, and questions whether the other half is still with the body, until he has a revelation in his mind. Meanwhile, the girl continues saying that during her investigations, she discovered that the more the soldiers use their powers, the more they become corrupted, and that over time, the soldier always ends up turning into a violent zombie, with nothing human left in their body. The Fang family has a way to control even these soldiers who turn berserk, which is why soldiers like her want to rebel. So the more resistant a person is, the more easily they become a violent zombie, and once transformed, they are used to continue the abuse. Yan asks her what makes her believe he would help her accomplish her goal. Nan then says that she noticed he's not a zombie and keeps getting stronger, saying that he's the only one who can do it, asking next for him to save them from that vicious cycle of slavery and violence, which leaves Yan shocked. Meanwhile, in another location, a woman was looking out the window saying something about humble people wanting to take her life every day. That someone was Fang Xiao, a major of the city, who calls them naive for thinking she'll just stay there serving as a giant target. A subordinate asks if she'd like him to investigate the recent murders, and the woman says Olsen will take care of it. The man then says she went to defend the city wall again, but heard about a very strong zombie coming from the north, adding that the alert level is level A. The woman looks shocked upon hearing this information. Apparently level A is very concerning. We're then taken to the city walls, where we see the weapons firing into the horizon. Suddenly, a kind of giant reddish worm appears, burrowing at high speed as it quickly approaches. The weapons stop functioning, which makes one of the soldiers desperate, while another soldier says the system has reached its limit. Wu arrives at the scene saying those weapons were created for aerial use and obviously wouldn't work well in a ground assault. He prepares for combat while saying he'll handle everything, since the zombie soldiers are the ones who should deal with ground combat. The monster continues approaching at high speed, demolishing everything in its path. One of the soldiers screams in desperation, warning the co-leader that the monster will invade the city by going under the wall. Another soldier says they don't need to panic, as the monster would soon face the landmines. And sure enough, a huge explosion is seen near the walls. This explosion causes the worm called Blood Zombie Worm to emerge from underground. In the blink of an eye, we see a line of light slicing through the air, with the monster being split in two by Wu, who then calmly stands beside the worm. He says to himself that if he keeps defeating so many monsters, he'll soon become the leader of the squad. One of the soldiers comments in astonishment about seeing the monster being cut in an instant. Another soldier says that's co-leader Wu's skill, that in his human life he often watched his father cut meat, a father who frequently sliced meat clean in half with precision. Therefore, after becoming a zombie, he took those fundamentals and teachings to another level, turning them into a personal skill. Wu interrupts the conversation upon noticing a strange movement from the worm, which was apparently regenerating. He prepares again to deliver another strike, a strike that splits the worm in half with a horizontal slash, causing the zombie to split into two halves. One of the soldiers comments that it's the first time he's seen a zombie that's not human, while his companion says it's normal, since he's a rookie. However, the more experienced one adds that some zombies don't have regeneration ability, and this is the first time he's seen one that regenerates so quickly. Wu, beside the monster, comments that he has no idea where the worm's core is located, but if he cuts the monster into many pieces, they'll surely hit the core, leaping at it to deliver more attacks. But before he can strike, the worm leaps at him to bite him. Wu is caught off guard. He didn't expect the creature to regenerate so quickly, receiving the blow and losing half of his body in the process. The monster lets out a huge roar as a victory cry while advancing toward the wall's soldiers. These soldiers react in shock, not understanding how that happened. But instead of attacking them, the worm attacks the anti-air weapon that was on the wall. This startles one of the soldiers, who can't understand the monster's movements, which begins traversing the entire surface of the wall, destroying weapon after weapon. One of the soldiers in a more distant location fires his weapon continuously at the monster, shouting for it not to come closer. The soldier was willing to sacrifice himself to save that weapon, which would be the last remaining on the wall. And just as he was about to be attacked, while crying and begging for his life, the monster is struck by something from somewhere and is split in the blink of an eye. That soldier stands there confused, trying to understand what just happened while observing the scene. He manages to see that a firefighter axe was thrown at the zombie, while he tries to make sense of what kind of axe it was. The axe was a kind of giant firefighter axe, which keeps spinning and slicing the monster. Intrigued, the soldier looks back, trying to see who could have done that. He sees a woman standing behind him. This woman was Olsen, the leader of the 10th Guard Squad, who orders the soldier to hand over his weapon to her. The worm regenerates again during this time and roars angrily to the skies, until it's hit by a few shots on its side, which catch its attention. When it looks back, the worm finally notices the woman. The soldiers present hide behind a wall, obeying the woman's command. One of the soldiers asks why she's using that weapon, since they've already seen it doesn't work, and it would be better to use bombs. This dialogue is interrupted by the zombie violently attacking the woman. But apparently, this was part of her plan, as she easily dodges the attack by jumping backward. Olsen channels a kind of yellow energy into the weapon, transforming the object into an extremely gigantic version aimed directly at the monster's face. Without wasting time, Olsen pulls the trigger at once, firing a gigantic cartridge at the zombie. That zombie is torn apart by a barrage of massive bullets that pierce through it instantly. After making the kill, the woman just keeps walking calmly, and her giant weapon returns to its normal size as the battle ends. The bullets also dissolve in the air just before hitting the soldiers. The soldiers are in shock, wondering if that thing could be called a cannon because of its size. The woman asks Wu if he's awake and if he managed to recover his body. The co-leader complains, lamenting that the boss had already been defeated, internally shouting that damn woman stole his kill again, until her phone starts ringing. Wu starts complaining, claiming that one day he'll steal her position, but the woman ignores him and answers the phone, saying she's going to take on another task. This infuriates the soldier, who yells at her, telling her not to ignore him and calling her arrogant. Later that day, and in another place at the Fang family compound, inside a monitoring booth, we hear someone complaining about crucial footage that had disappeared. One of the staff members confirms the statement, saying that important footage of an intruder had vanished without explanation. The only remaining image was of the masked intruder, who turned out to be our protagonist. We're then brought back to follow him. Yan is now at level 14, surrounded by monsters similar to starving lionesses, as he says he wasn't informed about them beforehand. One of the lionesses lunges at him to bite all at once, but calmly and with a quick movement. A vorpal strike is delivered by a samurai zombie similar to the one the protagonist had defeated earlier. Yan tells the zombie he'll leave the small targets to him. Then he fires again with his weapon and teleports to the top of a tree. And we get a glimpse of what happened 5 hours earlier during a conversation between Nan and the protagonist. Nan says she managed to delay the time Yan would have to report his actions to the association, so for now he was free. She then explains that the family's combat power system is based on ranks starting from S and ending at C. Our boy reflects that this system is a bit better than he imagined. Next, he asks for a reference on how the ability bisecting system works. The woman begins to explain, saying that levels can vary between plus and minus depending on the amount of zombification, and adds that the strongest person in the squad would be Olsen, classified as a plus, but her zombification level is unknown. That woman is at an abnormal level of endurance, continuously breaking the zombification limit without becoming corrupted. Yan asks if she would be the strongest person there. Nan says no, and that Olsen is in third place. And she finishes by saying that the zombie the hero is about to face now would be his drive test. Back in the present, our hero reflects on those words and approaches a place that looks like a huge hole in the ground with a bridge splitting it in the middle. He enters the area without wasting much time. That place is completely dark and full of holes resembling an insect hive. Upon entering, the protagonist feels a bit uneasy, saying he heard the sound of drums coming from inside the cave. When he looks deeper inside, he sees a pile of skulls and a red drum set. Coming face to face with a drummer zombie who uses bones as drumsticks. This zombie asks the boy if he's there to hear his concert. Yan reflects that this monster can talk just like Gloria used to. But without wasting time, he grabs his scar and opens fire on the monster. However, upon hearing his drums, the audience is revealed screaming. The crowd keeps shouting the name July Flower, saying they love them. Yan wonders if that's a concert he missed because of the apocalypse, or if it's just an illusion. However, someone grabs his hand. That someone was Nan, who asks why the boy looks so serious while raising his arm in the air. The zombie gets even more excited and continues playing his drums without stopping. The sound waves finally affect our boy, who tells this damn apocalypse to screw off, raising his arms and getting into the party vibe. Everyone starts dancing energetically, and we can see that the pink-haired girl from before was also there. The crowd was enormous, so big it stretched as far as the eyes could see. Our protagonist wonders how long he had been dancing, something like 10 hours straight, which left him extremely exhausted. He asks himself why he keeps doing this, saying that after hearing the drums, he just can't stop anymore. Until he remembers his headphones and quickly summons them, placing them over his ears right afterward. But before he can finish the motion, the sounds enter his ears, making him go back to dancing non-stop. He reflects that if this keeps up, he might end up dying from sheer exhaustion. Yan tries to crawl toward his fallen headphones while slowly losing consciousness, until someone picks up the headphones lying in front of him. That someone was Gloria, who comments about the boy dancing with such low energy beside her. The girl asks him why he's acting so childishly, making such weird movements. But the protagonist gets super irritated, shouting that he's under the effects of illusions and has been dancing for a long time, which makes Gloria happy. She says he should save some energy before taking revenge, and that he must stay strong and face every difficulty. Until we hear a snap and see a massive flash. This brings us back to reality, and we can see that all this time, a zombie had been draining the boy's energy like a dementor, until something surprises the monster. A weapon is positioned right below its mouth. That weapon belongs to the hero, who had woken up and immediately fired at the zombie. The zombie is launched far away instantly and crashes to the ground. Our boy reflects that at that moment, Gloria saved him because the muscles she left apparently still held traces of her consciousness. Until something catches his attention and he realizes the zombie was still alive, emerging from the ground like a ghost. Our hero doesn't understand anything, wondering if this is a resurrection or some kind of clone. The monster immediately positions itself at its drum set and slams a drum hard, sending sound waves violently echoing through the area, destroying the entire edge of the location, which begins to collapse. The monster looks ahead and smiles, thinking it had buried the boy, until it's surprised when it feels a sword piercing through its chest. When it looks back, it sees the samurai zombie from earlier. That samurai swiftly slices it in half and then steps back. Meanwhile, Yan watches from a distance. He hadn't been crushed. He was just hiding behind a pillar. Our boy reflects that thanks to the headphones, he wasn't affected by the illusions, even though he could still hear a bit of the drumming. But that was just another clone, so the hero uses his X-ray vision to find the real body and strike. He notices several bodies scattered throughout the area, but one of them had a very different shape on its head, prompting the boy to shout loudly that he had found it. Yan screams that Fang Xiao is a disgrace and orders his soldier to attack the monster, an order that is obeyed immediately. We hear some sounds coming from a hole, and then we see something emerging from it. But that something was only the zombie soldier's head, leaving Yan speechless. Meanwhile, the drummer monster appears in the background with a wicked smile on its face, staring at the hero. Yan reflects that the aura of that monster is completely different from all the other clones. We see a bit more of the conversation between the protagonist and Nan, who states that even Olsen avoids the type of monster he's about to face. Yan shrugs and says it must be a joke that she's asking him to face such a zombie out of nowhere. Back to the present, we can see the hero now understands that it wasn't a joke, and this would truly be a survival test. Suddenly, the monster charges at the protagonist with all its strength. He jumps to try to escape from the creature, quickly repositioning himself to the other side of the cavern. Wielding his weapon, he fires shots non-stop. The opponent uses his arms as a means of defense. The bullets graze past and don't hit him. As the creature flees, the shots intensify. The young man seems determined to end his adversary's life. He shoots from behind, showing no remorse, becoming confused, not knowing how he missed so many shots even while aiming at the brain. Suddenly, a noise approaches. Those sounds cause illusions capable of affecting the protagonist's senses. His eyes, ears, and sense of touch were affected, including even his shooting accuracy. Wasting no time, the creature displays all its combat skills and tries to knock the boy down. However, he was still able to dodge the blows. Suddenly, the monster holds something in its hands. Upon seeing that scene, the boy can't believe it. A precise blow comes his way, leaving no time even to think. Yan Zheng is thrown against the stone walls. The protagonist couldn't avoid the blow, and now his headphones and weapon were broken in 2 pieces. Moreover, he still couldn't detect the level of that zombie and didn't know how to use his upgrade points. At that moment, the warrior gets an idea. He just needed to be sure he had 2 items with noise cancellation. While lost in his thoughts, a punch came his way. Noticing the attack, he manages to dodge quickly. But wasting no time, the undead kicks his body. With a smile on its face, the creature begins to run. The crack in the wall was immense, and the zombie uses the sounds again to confuse the boy. Quickly, the sound gets closer to his ears. Even so, the protagonist manages to land a blow on the opponent's face, which is thrown far away. Upon hitting the rock wall, a rift opens. It is revealed that when young, he managed to fight without being affected by sound. His level 20 attack strength was stronger than before. Confused, the zombie doesn't understand why the noise wasn't working. The noise-canceling headphones had been upgraded to a silent environment device. Now the boy understood why Namu warned that even the strongest wouldn't enter the place without the device. While he thinks, the opponent prepares for the next attack. The boy's expression reveals that he was ready for anything to come. With no chance, the undead can't defend itself properly, and being weakened, the noise didn't help at all. Silence was absolute at that moment. With a powerful punch, the corpse is launched far away, slicing through the air. Debris flies everywhere, scattering pieces of stone. The boss's first form was defeated, and the protagonist gains rewards. He thinks the second form must be the real one. Suddenly, the monster starts moving its hands. Planting one of its feet on the ground, it uses the sound against the young man. Yan Zheng wasn't understanding its movements, since the noise trick no longer worked. The opponent uses the necrotic technique, a set of the Black Death. The boy's confidence drains from his face almost instantly. Yan Zheng's level rises to 26 with the wind-chasing lightning skill acquired. His opponent appears stronger, with twice as many eyes and spines scattered across his legs. He had realized the necrotic technique didn't work on the boy, so he decided to use it on himself. Now the monster looked more terrifying and powerful than ever. Wasting no time, it disappears from the protagonist's sight. Confused, the boy couldn't understand the movements. The creature was already behind him, much faster than before. The cut on his face infects him with zombie venom, and he needs to level up to recover. This was an emergency, and he had to use all of his points to win. The level of the violent rock and roll zombie is revealed as 35. Quickly, the monster tries to hit the boy in every way, slashing the air. While shooting, the young man realizes he's at a disadvantage in close combat. The monster notices something coming its way. With its powerful claws, it catches the bullet. Yan Zheng tries to approach with a leap overhead, but the zombie is too fast and manages to kick his body. Debris flies everywhere, showing the intensity of the impact. The boy's body curls up near the rock. His level drops drastically, which makes him worried. The passive skill he had just acquired, inheriting bullet speed, only caused him to take more damage. Knowing he couldn't create enough distance between them, he concludes he would have to fight head-on. Beams slice through the air, showing the intensity of the battle. The opponent's head was very tough, and if he couldn't break it, it would be game over when the poison spread. Neither the pistol nor the armor-piercing fire lightning spear was enough. With a smile on its face, the creature advances toward the young man. The protagonist thinks he couldn't die like that, not after coming such a long way to get there. Confident, he decides to use the muscles of glory, shifting the power distribution and using it in close combat. He would have to make the most of his only chance, as there would be a cooldown time after using the muscle. Risking his life, he imagines his fist as the tip of a spear and bets the levels he had earned. Using all his powers, he strikes the enemy with a punch to the face. The blow was so strong it crushed the zombie's head. Smoke flies everywhere. Finally, he managed to eliminate the boss, acquiring 10 level-up points. However, he still felt a strange sensation in his body. The zombie poison gauge was almost full, making the boy hurry to level up and get rid of the debuff. Now he was at level 35, and the zombie poison was completely removed, gaining a strengthened shooting skill. Yan Zheng thinks he has 100 stamina points when full, enough to empty a 30-bullet magazine. In addition, he acquired the zombie pasture core, allowing him to temporarily control low-level violent zombies. For him, risking his life that way was worth it. Looking toward the horizon, the boy notices the city was under attack. Huge war tanks were firing consecutive shots. Desperate, a guard doesn't know how to defend the city due to the Fang family's broken anti-aircraft weapons. He asks for higher-level zombie troops to be sent in. Meanwhile, the destruction caused in the city only increases. Amid the clouds, an unusual creature flies through the sky. With huge wings exuding powerful energy, fearing no death, the captain asks for the attack to be launched. Nervous, the soldier doesn't believe it's worth risking his life for a miserable salary. When the flying monster opens its mouth, he is certain he will die right there. Suddenly, a warrior hits the dragon's head with a surprise attack. Fallen to the ground, the creature no longer moves. Beside the guards, the giant man observes the situation. The soldier doesn't know who he is, but the captain knows him well. He was a chosen one from the anti-violence squad with hundreds of consecutive victories against zombies. The two embrace, celebrating that they are safe. However, something immediately hits the man, and his body is cut in half. The dragon is still alive and ready for the second phase of the battle. Confused, the chosen one thinks he could have risen from B+ to A next month. His rage is visible throughout his body. Quickly, he releases all his energy against the enemy. That stinky lizard managed to provoke the zombification of the soldier. Suddenly, he completely transforms, returning far more powerful than before. Maintaining the corrosion rate was still a hard thing to do even for a strong guy like him. However, the man believed the fight would end soon. With his giant hands, he grabs the dragon's tail, certain he wouldn't fall for the same trick twice. The man says he has no time to waste even if he wanted to train with the opponent. As he throws a punch, he says he will send the dragon to the underworld immediately. The necrotic technique creates a double cannon knee, causing a massive explosion. With eyes fixed, the Chosen One analyzes every detail of the scene, absorbing everything around him. The creature, wounded and exhausted, collapses to the ground, struggling to recover from the intense pain. The man then says the attack must have completely destroyed its brain. Impressed, the soldiers comment on how easily the warrior launches cannons with his gloves. Rumors say he can pour necrotic energy to increase the cannonball's power. The soldier thinks that with such a strong person by his side, he could rest without fear. However, the warrior hears a noise coming from below. An energy emanates from all corners, growing stronger. Suddenly, those lights head toward the top of the building, creating a rift and leaving part of the structure completely destroyed. The powerful man is struck instantly. Not wanting to use healing techniques to avoid turning into a violent zombie, the only part left of his body is the head. Confused, he doesn't understand how that immense creature was still alive. Now he was certain that day would be his last. Accepting his death, the man prefers to turn to ashes rather than become a violent zombie who attacks people. A sudden boom echoes through the streets, breaking the city's tranquility. The deep, resonant sound draws the dragon, awakening its curiosity and protective instinct. More and more, the noise grows louder. Turning its body, the monster becomes curious to know what it is about. With speed, Yan Zheng runs and gets closer to the battle. He wields his weapon with persistence, showing that he was ready for combat. And in less than 5 seconds, he completely cuts through the dragon's body. Finally, the B+ grade fire zombie was eliminated, granting the protagonist a fire stone. Shocked, the warrior realizes that the monster was finally defeated. The captain is shocked to witness the strength of that stranger. Meanwhile, the boy observes the current situation, realizing he needs to buy a new dagger since his couldn't withstand fast attacks. His expression changes as he notices he's being called a hero. Startled, the young man realizes the man was still alive, even after being severely injured. He asks if he should take the Chosen One to the hospital. However, the fighter informs that self-healing will no longer work once the body exceeds its limit. Thus, before departing, he expresses all his gratitude and asks the boy to take care of his brain so he doesn't become a violent zombie. On the boy's panel, the information shows that the target's HP was below 20% and should be released from his current master, Fang Xiao. At that moment, a light begins to emerge from the man's head. Attentively, everyone watches the dissipation of energy throughout the environment, and unexpectedly, the man's body is completely reconstituted. Looking at his limbs, the fighter believes it was the master's doing. Confused, he doesn't understand why the word master keeps coming out of his mouth, seeming both shameful and exciting. Looking to the sky, the man sees no trace of the boy, who had completely disappeared. Yan went to a weapon shop. Upon arrival, the owner greets him with immense hostility. Using his powers, the boy alters his appearance. Near the counter, the confident young man offers valuable items, hoping for a good deal to sell them. The man is suspicious, questioning how a new soldier could possess something truly valuable. Yan Zheng reveals a legendary pistol, surprising the man, who reacts with disbelief and anger. Irritated and disdainful, the man orders the boy to leave, considering it all a waste of time. However, he asks the shop owner to take a closer look at everything. Suspicious, the man pays no mind to the items the protagonist has to offer, comparing everything to garbage. The pistol shines intensely, emitting a dazzling light, confirming its power and extraordinary origin. In disbelief, the vendor questions if the weapon is the legendary one mentioned in tales and stories, and fascinated, he begs to examine the weapon, recognizing its incomparable value and importance. To make up for his deplorable attitude, he offers 50,000 for the weapon. With hidden intentions, he plans to infuse necromantic energy into the weapon and resell it for profit. However, the young man drastically raises the offer, willing to add more value, totaling 500,000 for the weapon. Immediately, he does not accept the price, suggesting it's an insult, but soon backtracks on the decision and gives the boy a suitcase of money. The protagonist smells the freshly acquired money. Suddenly, the shop door opens. Kuyan welcomes his new customers. Fang Shu appears with his zombie soldiers, saying it's the ideal time for this month's protection payment. Confused, the boy doesn't understand why fees need to be paid in the middle of the apocalypse. Holding the boy, Qian asks him not to cause trouble and to leave immediately. The protagonist accepts the orders and slowly walks out of the shop. Despite that, a hand holds the door, preventing his exit. The intimidating man demands payment of the protection fee, claiming that witnesses have a financial responsibility. With a threatening look, the young man warns that the situation might be reversed, leaving everyone shocked. Furious, the man yells, outraged, claiming that no one has ever dared challenge him in such a way before. The shop owner intervenes, saying the boy was a rookie zombie soldier who didn't understand the rules. The arrogant man demands 3 months' profit and that the shop owner's eldest daughter play with his older brother later. Desperate, The man in glasses begs for his daughter to be spared since she can barely walk. With a smile on his face, the soldier says it's just a change due to playing too much with normal girls. Opening his mouth, the protagonist states that he realizes he didn't misjudge the Fang family. The man is confused by his words, but the boy claims they never disappoint when it comes to being inhumane. Hearing that, the boss orders the henchman to finish off the boy once and for all. Desperate, Quinn begs for the young man to be released, saying he's just a normal person. Ignoring the old man's words, the soldier charges into battle, confident he would crush the protagonist's head, and quickly, he punches Yan Zheng in the face. The shop's glass shatters into fragments. The boss gets angry upon realizing the soldier destroyed the entire shop since they needed to collect the protection fees. Suddenly, the subordinate starts trembling all over. That sensation to him was something unusual, strange. Looking at his fist covered in the boy's fluids. Suddenly, in the middle of the smoke, a figure appears standing. The protagonist returns more imposing than before, ready to show all his powers. The soldier is shocked by his appearance and charges again. But Yan Zheng manages to take the guy down using only one of his hands. Everyone is shocked by the scene. The situation inside becomes very strange. Fang Shu doesn't understand how a normal person without necrotic energy could kill a rank B soldier. Suddenly, another henchman charges at the protagonist. After defeating another soldier, the boy gains 2 more upgrade points. Desperate, the boss begs the boy not to hurt him, claiming that if he were harmed, the Fang family would send their higher-level zombie soldiers. Upon hearing that classification, the young man remembers Nan Yu's warning. Smiling, the boss notices that the mere mention of the Fang family's name made his opponent scared. He threatens him, shouting that he is dead and that the Fang family would hunt down everyone he knows. Unfazed by the words, the warrior punches him in the face. Fallen to the ground, his health reaches the level of 21%. The boy reflects, worried about controlling his strength not to kill the opponent and to get information. He then offers Shan the chance to vent his anger with a few blows. Frightened, the shopkeeper refuses, admitting he would never dare challenge the powerful and feared Fang family. However, he completely changes and begins to hit the tax collector with a baseball bat. Half an hour later, the man says it was a satisfying experience to beat someone up. The protagonist releases his powers into the enemy's body and transforms him into his new servant. Suddenly, Fang Shu's health level is fully restored, reaching 100%. Upon waking, the man recognizes Yan Zheng as his master, and begging forgiveness for his earlier behavior, he says that from now on he will be an obedient servant. The shopkeeper is confused by the scene he witnessed, because in 10 years of work he had never seen someone from the Fang family kneel like a dog. Yan Zheng orders Fang Shu to tell all the crucial details about his family. The young man mocks him, questioning the man's credibility while mentioning a possible connection with Qin Shiyuan. Desperate, the servant tries to redeem himself in an extreme way, but the protagonist quickly stops him. Reflecting, the boy concludes that discovering the necropolis was valuable, a perfect place to evolve. Excited, Yan talks about his plan to defeat Fang Xiao, but Qian questions his ability to win, since the young man would have to face all the guards, and that would be a problem. Furthermore, although many people in the city hate Fang Xiao, no one has been able to assassinate him. And even if the man were eliminated, the zombies outside could take the opportunity to invade the city. Confused, the boy realizes he would have to rethink his entire plan. The man then says they would need to find a way to end the apocalypse once and for all, or find a new leader. Otherwise, they would just end up causing an even bigger mess. Qian hands the boy a wooden box. It was a gift for the boy made from materials from the necropolis many years ago. A powerful pistol strong enough to break the skull of a violent zombie, and a karambit with an extremely sharp blade. Elsewhere, far from there, the sky displayed an intense blue through the green trees. It was a necropolis-grade war squad. The protagonist orders his servant Fang Shu to guard the entrance. Determined, he approaches the door. Placing one of his hands on it, the boy releases his energy. To him, it all felt like a children's game copy in which the greater the difficulty, the greater the rewards. With his index finger, he clicks on the word hero. The door opens, revealing a dark passage. Without knowing what he would find at the end of the stairs, the protagonist could already feel the necrotic energy. Putting his head in the right place, he realizes it was too early to think about killing Fang Xiao. His goal would be to level up and reach first place. Pushing the heavy doors, the boy feels prepared to face the most terrible monsters, when suddenly he falls to the ground, hitting his face. The task had begun, and he could not leave that necropolis before the death of the head of state. The captain appears in front of him, shouting for the soldier to pull himself together and take his position. Angry, the officer can't believe the young man was without a uniform and without his weapons. Not understanding what was happening, Yan goes to the middle of the battalion. In the middle of the ocean, they head into battle, seated in a small boat. The size of the troops was overwhelming, with countless soldiers scattered across the sea. At that moment, the young man realized it was an imitation of World War II. The captain pulls out one of his weapons and hands it to the boy to use for now. He is completely shocked to see that Yan Zheng changed clothes quickly. The young man explains it's equipment from zombies full of necrotic energy that he had taken from the arsenal. All of his comrades are confused upon hearing those words. The order was to open the hatch and prepare to disembark. One of the soldiers observes the scene in front of him. Suddenly, countless shots come toward the battalion. In seconds, the soldiers are completely gunned down. Only the captain makes it out of the ship alive. Looking back, he realizes most of his companions were gone, but one person was still alive beside him. He is startled to see Yan Zheng's face. The young man explains that his helmet disappeared due to the invisibility mode. The captain says the tanks couldn't get up due to the sheks, and the MP-42 machine guns posed a great threat. Then he orders the soldiers to attack once the machine guns turn in another direction. Looking to his side, the man no longer sees anyone. Suddenly, soldiers appear with weapons in hand. In front of them stood Yan Zheng, showing no fear of bullets. He gains the momentum needed for a precise jump, and shortly after, he is near the barrier. His comrades are shocked, thinking the boy wasn't human. Quickly, the young man climbs the building with ease. With firm steps, he reaches the top, feeling invincible and determined. Despite the confidence, a disturbing feeling surrounded him. In the blink of an eye, he opens a crack in the wall, thinking afterward that if it weren't for the 50% physical strength debuff, he would have hit his target. While loading their weapons, the soldiers hear a strange noise. One of them sticks his head through the gap to see what it is. However, a hand manages to grab his face. Yan Zheng throws the man down while climbing the wall again. The protagonist reaches the enemy base. A shootout begins, and he uses all of his enhanced shooting skills. Quickly, he takes down all of his opponents by hitting their heads. The destruction caused is swift and favorable to the boy. The noise ends up attracting more soldiers who approach slowly. A grenade is forcefully thrown. Suddenly, countless grenades head toward the target. At that moment, the protagonist expresses all of his gratitude for the items he carried in his backpack, and his opponents are eliminated with precision. The resulting explosions spread smoke through the air. On the other side, zombie soldiers attack the humans, drinking their fluids. Bullets tried to hit their bodies, but nothing penetrated that hardened skin. The zombies looked increasingly enraged. Frightened and scared, the soldiers didn't know what kind of creature they were dealing with. The captain is terrified by this scandalous death rate. The entire company was practically destroyed, but they only managed to kill about 10 enemies. The remaining soldiers were running out of bullets. At the moment, retreating was not an option, as the monsters were extremely fast. Thus, the plan was to hold out as long as they could and fight with determination. That was the captain's intention, but his body was frozen with fear. The zombie was getting closer, trying to reach him. Suddenly, the creature is exterminated right before his eyes. The only remaining part was its hand. Shocked, the captain looks to see where the shot came from. With a weapon in hand, Yan Zheng had eliminated the threat. The protagonist explains that thing was called a violent zombie, and the way to end it was by smashing the head. Lowering his powerful weapon, the young man approaches. The captain does not recognize what kind of weapon that was, with power equivalent to small caliber projectiles. At that moment, the officer is thankful they're safe. Minutes later, a zombie crushes a soldier with the weight of its body. The captain is extremely frightened by the scene. That was a grade of violent zombie, the Imperial Elite Major. With one of its hands, it approaches the soldier, but it's not able to reach him, thanks to Yan Zheng, who threw the captain far away, saying it was better that way. To defend himself, the protagonist causes an explosion with his shots. Debris flies everywhere as the boy aims at the major. He stops the shooting upon noticing something strange. The zombie was using a concrete slab to protect itself. That was a necrotic energy technique that prevented his attack. The monster then shatters the concrete block into 1,000 pieces, launching stones in every direction. The smoke slightly blocked the major's vision. Determined, he would use necrotic energy again, and with a blow, he destroys another concrete block. While he was distracted, the boy appears in midair, aiming precisely at the major with his pistol. Holes begin forming in the concrete block, becoming increasingly deep. Upon landing, the protagonist prepares the next attack. Now his goal was to pierce that thick wall. Fully positioned, he grabs his other weapon and fires, and with a single bullet, manages to pierce the concrete and hit the major. However, not being able to use X-ray vision was a big problem. Now a few more shots would be needed. Suddenly, Yan Zheng notices something approaching from his left. A large impact occurs, scattering debris everywhere. While being pushed, the protagonist uses his weapon as protection to avoid major damage. The zombie equipment was much stronger than his previous weapons. At that moment, the zombie major tried to rebuild his body. Debris begins moving toward the boy, because the zombie was using his powers to control the stones. Out of nowhere, spikes appear from the ground and begin to grow larger, trying to reach the boy. Fleeing the imminent danger, he attempts to fire a few shots. But once again, the major uses his necrotic techniques. Thick blocks emerge in front of him as a means of protection. Even so, the bullets pierce through the concrete with precision. On the other side, the zombie awaits the next move. Suddenly, a crack begins to form in the final wall, and the bullets pass through the blocks, reaching the undead. Suddenly, he is hit by the shots and flies backward. Yan Zheng continues his mission to end the enemy. Approaching, he aims his weapon at the opponent's face, but the major grabs his pistol with one hand while seizing his arm with the other. The two engage in an intense battle. Confused, the young man doesn't understand his movements. At that moment, a giant hand appears on the ground. The boy wonders if his opponent was trying to crush him with that blow. The giant hand closes, seemingly crushing the boy. But with quick slashes, he manages to escape the trap. The Imperial Elite Zombie Major is finally defeated and 6 level-up points are acquired. The Earth Zombie Core was obtained, which can be used as an enhancement for geotechnical abilities. With binoculars, Nanfeng observed the scene closely. Intrigued, the man shows a certain interest in that boy. Meanwhile, the boy, knowing he could only use one enhanced shot in the necropolis, concludes the zombie core wouldn't be that useful. He then decides to store it in his inventory for later. 7 points are used to raise his level to 42, and he saves 2 as backup. At that moment, a door falls from the sky. The protagonist has completed the first stage, moving on to the next. His eyes remain alert to the new environment. War tanks pass through the street. Thoughtful, the young man reflects on a possible ambush ahead. Stating that it wasn't safe outside, the soldier asks the boy to get into the tank. Before he can move, an explosion occurs right before his eyes. At that instant, he decides to take cover behind the wall, watching the war tank completely destroyed. One of the soldiers comments on the appearance of a tiger tank. Determined, they choose to use their mobility advantage, splitting between the forest and the city. 2 tanks scout inside the city. Suddenly, something crosses their path. The soldier inside the vehicle spots the enemies, and they begin firing several shots, which hit one of the tanks, causing an explosion. Meanwhile, other vehicles are in the forest. Frightened, the soldiers realize the platoon was being annihilated. 2 more tiger tanks appeared in front, and the commander gives the order to surround them from behind. Fire erupts from both sides, and the tanks attempt a new approach but keep getting hit. The enemies were very strong and skilled. However, they managed to make a hole in the enemy vehicle. Now they just needed one more precise shot to finish them off. Despite all their willpower, something strikes the left side of the tank. The resulting explosion informs the others that the battle is over. Meanwhile, a man observes the situation with binoculars. Looking toward the horizon, he notices there's still 1 tank left, but it seemed to be a model never seen before. Even so, the soldier doesn't feel intimidated and orders another attack. The shots are fired with extreme precision toward the enemy. However, the projectile shows no power at all, not even denting the armor. Frightened, the commander can't believe what just happened. Now the protagonist would show everyone what he was capable of. Immediately, a different projectile is fired from the tank. The aim is precise and the target has no way to escape. Upon impact, the vehicle shatters. At that moment, energy spreads around the protagonist's vehicle. Quickly, it disappears, leaving only Yan Zheng. Upon seeing the system, the young man is happy for saving some points earlier since he got an upgrade for the tank. Looking to the horizon, he reflects that the violent zombie army might still be in the city. Tanks are parked near a house. Furious, the captain realizes the enemy was able to destroy one of their tanks. In a house, the protagonist waits for the right moment to act. Using his powers, he uses his hands as weapons, and once again creates his massive war tank. Suddenly, an explosion occurs, scattering debris everywhere. One of the tanks is easily hit, spreading fire through the area. At that moment, the enemies realize the attack came from inside the house, even though it was already too late. Meanwhile, new troops arrive as reinforcements. The entire platoon of tiger tanks is annihilated, leaving no survivors. Approaching, they spot the enemy tank 2 kilometers away. Using all their strength, the soldiers show they are determined to eliminate it once and for all. But the protagonist is already prepared and launches his first attack. With speed, he fires a missile toward the opponents. The object is so powerful that it pierces through numerous war tanks. In the end, a massive explosion is caused. War debris can be seen flying through the air as the protagonist remains alive. Despite his efforts, he notices that 1 tank hasn't exploded. Suddenly, something comes out of the vehicle. Confused, the protagonist doesn't understand that type of movement. The tank begins transforming into something completely different. It was a level 50 Spider Zombie King tank. Frightened, Yan Zheng realizes the vehicle replicated the shape of his turret. The bombardment begins almost immediately. Luckily, the warrior manages to escape death. He calculates that the blind spot should be above that location, while his enemy unleashes intense attacks. Yan Zheng fires a missile on top of the tank. Another huge explosion occurs, but the vehicle seems impenetrable. Nervous, the young man doesn't know how to defend himself. Suddenly, red webs appear and grab him. With skill, the zombie tank lifts the boy's tank into the air. Apparently, his enemy was trying to crush everything he could. With a leap, he descends from the sky, causing the tank to disappear. The boy grabs onto one of the giant webs, but the enemy starts shaking him from side to side, and shortly after it withdraws his combat instruments. Yan Zheng, still alive, lands on the ground. Cleverly, he reveals he had planted bombs all over the enemy's armor. Another massive explosion occurs, releasing a lot of smoke, while the warrior patiently waits for the battle to end. However, he has not yet received a death notification, realizing his enemy is still alive. From within the smoke, the red webs come out quickly. With no time to waste, the young man decides he will finish the enemy before it changes form. However, on top of the tank, an enigmatic figure is revealed. It is the commander who controlled the spider zombie tank. Furthermore, the boy recognizes the old man as Xiao Qi's grandfather. Angrily, he realizes that if the old man had turned into a zombie, all the villagers might have met the same fate. While lost in thought, the webs grab his legs. The cannons point in his direction, ready to fire. A shot is fired and the final target is Yan Zheng. Thus, an explosion spreads across the area, displaying the full power of the enemy. Imposing, the villain remains standing, watching the destruction caused. With a smile on his face, he shows all his satisfaction. A crater formed in the ground due to the impact of the shots. The war tank is destroyed with dents in the armor, and the zombie has a joyful expression, believing he has defeated his opponent. Suddenly, something very fast appears in the air. Unable to see clearly, the old man is confused. He launches his webs to try to defend himself from whatever it is. Suddenly, Yan Zheng appears beside him with a weapon in one hand. The young man's expression shows all of his anger. With intense and precise strikes, he splits the zombie's body apart. The remains are scattered in the wind, leaving no chance for the villain. Approaching Saoki's grandfather's body, he observes it. The old man asks if that boy was Yan Zheng. Desperate, the young man asks what happened in Saoki. Losing strength, the zombie tries to say something to him. However, a shot comes his way and blows his head apart. The protagonist eliminated a violent zombie and acquired 9 points. Turning around, he notices the approach of a stranger. The man approaches the boy, stating that it wasn't his style to hesitate in killing a violent zombie. Knowing it was their first meeting, he introduces himself as Man Feng, Nan Yu's older brother. Irritated, Yan Zheng says that the decision to kill that man should have been his alone. However, Man Feng says he poses no threat, as the two had much in common. Upon hearing the name of the Fang family, the protagonist pays closer attention to the conversation. The man asks the boy to meet him at Eagle's Nest after cleaning up all that mess. At that moment, a door appears. Before leaving, Nan Feng states that he'll be waiting anxiously. Suspicious, the warrior senses something odd about the situation. Even so, he decides to open the door and continue his mission. After entering the next stage, the door disappears. The environment changes completely, and he's now on an airplane. Apparently, the next stage was an aerial battle. Thoughtful, he reflects on how many points would be needed to transform a World War II fighter jet into a 5th-generation one. Using all of his points, he decides to transform the aircraft. Thus, with 2 points, he acquires an F-22 Raptor. Beside him, the pilot thinks he's hallucinating from seeing the new aircraft. Shortly after, a plane is hit by multiple shots. The enemy appears on the scene, ready to blow everything up. One after another, the planes get into position. Suddenly, an attack begins, targeting all aircraft, which try to evade. One of the soldiers notices a model never seen before. The protagonist says that anyone who attacks him will suffer terrible consequences. Aiming at the fighter jet, his target is located. However, the young man prefers to activate his engines to gain more speed. His aircraft cuts through the air, confusing his adversaries. With great speed, he climbs as high as he can, becoming completely out of reach. The enemy pilots don't understand how the aircraft vanished in the blink of an eye and are extremely confused. While flying, a precise shot hits one of the planes. Confused, the soldier doesn't understand where the attack came from. But before he could think further, he's hit as well. Yan, safe and sound, thinks that those old relics from World War II would never be able to avoid a missile that travels faster than sound. A missile is launched with extreme speed, slicing through the sky like a deadly lightning bolt. Suddenly, a devastating bombardment can be seen in the distance, lighting up the landscape with intense explosions. The soldier in the aircraft realizes they're being attacked from behind and that they've already lost 8 fighter jets to the attacks. Beside him, his colleague notices that the attacks have stopped. They also realize their enemies were out of missiles. Therefore, they decide to go with a plan, which was to set pride aside and jump into the fight. Thus, the combat aircraft sets out on its mission, determined to fulfill its goal. With lethal precision, it targets all its missiles at the enemy, ready to deliver a devastating attack. One of the aircraft is hit immediately. Shortly after, smoke shows that the plane is going down. Now only a few enemies remain to be eliminated, each more cautious than the last. The next target had already been hit, leaving a trail of destruction in its path. However, someone notices something strange. Among the clouds, a plane quickly approaches. It was the level 65th generation violent zombie fighter. At that moment, the boy understood he would have to face a 5th generation jet after using all of his ammunition. All the damage to the aircraft was repaired and all ammunition and fuel were replenished. Thus, he was able to accelerate with more power. Drawing a streak in the sky, he flies through the clouds. The engines display their full speed potential. The boy continues fleeing from his adversary. The 5th generation fighter spots the perfect moment to launch a missile. That small device travels across the sky at an exorbitant speed. The black fighter jet sees no way out as it's been locked on. Even accelerating its engines, the missile is too fast and is chasing it. However, the pilot manages to change his trajectory, creating distance from the threat. Now he would go after the powerful 5th generation fighter. A new chase begins, adrenaline pulsing through every move. The attack mode had completely changed, becoming more aggressive and strategic, ready to surprise. Thus, a military aircraft manages to launch a missile. With that, the opponent must evade the weapon that was chasing him. Even though it's fast, the missile is already behind the aircraft. Suddenly, it manages to shift its path to avoid being hit forcefully. The projectile continues on its path without causing explosions. Now the white fighter finds the perfect opportunity to strike the aircraft. the pilot notices the dangerous approach of that plane. Frightened, he realizes it's a type of terrifying mobility unknown to him. The aircraft is getting closer and closer at extreme speed. At that very moment, the black fighter jet is completely shot down. Debris can be seen in the air after the occurrence of an explosion. Intact, the fifth-generation jet dodges the remains of the plane. However, the pilot doesn't notice something approaching from the left. Jumping, the boy tries to save his life, seeking to escape imminent danger. With one of his hands, he clings to the aircraft using all his strength. He places on the back of the plane a bomb he had received from his uncle at the weapons shop. Doing a somersault, he launches himself into the air. He continues placing several bombs, one after another. At that moment, the timer had already hit 0. A massive explosion can be seen, throwing fragments in all directions. While observing the smoke and the destruction caused, the boy falls in free fall. Confused, he realizes there was no death notification. From within the gray mist, some winged creature can be seen approaching. It was a violent black shadow zombie, level 60 Dragon King. The protagonist wonders if the boss had a second form. That monstrosity begins to reveal all its powers, but the boy was prepared with his weapon in hand, praying not to get hit. Thus, the dragon casts a spell in his direction. In free fall, the boy manages to dodge it. He observes the curious orb floating in the sky. Suddenly, an intense light creates an explosion. Shielding his eyes, the boy brings his hands to his face. That orb holds an immense intensity. Suddenly, a wave of energy begins to expand through the air, creating a palpable tension. Next, an explosion occurs, revealing something unexpected. A crater opens in the ground, leaving a trail of destruction and mystery in its path. Terrified, the boy realizes that even without the physical debuff, he wouldn't have been able to withstand that nuclear bomb. As he continues falling, that monster chases him, coming in his direction. The protagonist notices that the attack had a cooldown time. Trying to protect himself, he fires his weapon at his opponent. Despite his efforts, the dragon's skin seems impenetrable. Soon after, the monster is already in front of him, trying to devour him. Seemingly without an escape, the boy manages to move his body, landing on the dragon's back. He holds his weapon while displaying his skills. That was the perfect moment to hit his opponent. The dragon feels the shots directly on its skin. Meanwhile, the protagonist hopes to have caused great damage. The wounds on the back of the flying creature are visible, showing the intense battle it endured. Even so, it regenerates easily, as if its supernatural strength defies any damage received. It seems the only way to defeat that opponent would be to strike directly at its core. The biggest problem was that the monster had many cores scattered throughout its body. That zombie had split the original core into its brainstem in separated fragments, making things harder for the protagonist. Suddenly, the dragon lets out a roar. Its body contorts and it starts spinning in rotation. With one of his hands, the boy holds on tightly. Despite his effort, his expression revealed he wouldn't be able to hold on much longer. At that moment, his body is thrown far away. Once again, the young man falls through the sky in free fall. Meanwhile, the dragon approaches the orb, but that posed no threat to the boy, who could not be hit by its power. The orb passes far from his body, causing not even a scratch. The boy already knew he couldn't be hit. Even so, a strange sensation causes his body to lose balance. That black hole was pulling him with full force. The attack seemed different from the last one, with great gravitational strength. With his weapon, he tries to land a few shots. However, when he fires a bullet from his pistol, it starts losing power, and suddenly, its trajectory changes completely. At that moment, the boy was nearly hit by his own shot. A shadow can be seen moving across the sky. Without giving up on its attacks, the dragon tries to use the orb. The boy was being pulled by the gravity behind him and couldn't use flash to dodge. If he took a direct hit, there would be no trace of his body left. His only hope was to use all his remaining upgrade points to upgrade that weapon. After using his power, his weapon was quickly upgraded. A player revolver was obtained with a wide range of high variance effects. Now the protagonist was ready to join the game wholeheartedly. Aiming his weapon, he pointed it at that powerful orb. Hovering in the air, the boy noticed the release of the orb's power. Meanwhile, the dragon was approaching at speed. The orb was releasing many beams of light. Suddenly, a light spreads completely. An explosion was caused, scattering debris in all directions. Meanwhile, a girl was calmly having her coffee. Sitting on the couch, she was the city's defense officer, named Olsen. The liquid inside the mug begins to move. Assistant Xiaozhang asks them to protect themselves from a possible earthquake. However, the officer knows that movement wasn't a natural phenomenon. She knew the vibration came from a distant location, mixed with the intense stench of corpses, assuming it was an S-class fighting. A whirlwind forms around the dragon. The lucky shot was able to neutralize the entire attack and distract the boss, as well as break the gravity. With the explosion covering his vision, the boy managed to use consecutive flash shots to reach behind the creature. Determined, he points his weapon with resolve, focusing on the target ahead. This time, the number shown on the die is 1, signaling that luck was not on his side. The shot follows its trajectory, slicing through the air with precision toward the chosen destination, and it manages to hit the dragon's skin. Even so, the protagonist is quite shocked when he realizes it wasn't enough. Flying through the sky, the monster goes after the orb. Getting closer, it opens its mouth. Its fangs are enormous, capable of destroying bodies with a single bite. However, the boy doesn't give up and points his weapon again. He fires several times, aiming at the creature's mouth. The dice spin, without revealing the rolled number. Suddenly, the number that appears is 5. Zhang knows he only had one chance to reach level 5, so his luck wasn't that great. At that moment, the creature is standing still in front of him. Something strange can be seen on its giant body. The protagonist says he's curious to see what it would be like to have a mini nuke explode inside the enemy's body. At that moment, an explosion happens inside the monster's body. Parts of it are thrown in all directions. The enemy was eliminated and the passive skill Curve Overtake was activated. The legendary upgrade point of the Shadow Dragon King was obtained, capable of upgrading any item to legendary quality. That was his first legendary upgrade point, but due to restrictions, he couldn't use the special ability yet. Now Yanzhen had reached level 50. While celebrating his newly acquired skills, a rift opened in the ground. Turning around, the protagonist noticed something strange. Suddenly, something huge began to emerge from the ground. In front of him, a giant castle appeared with a terrifying appearance. The boy thinks that must be a final boss. With his hands, he pushes the door. Entering the castle, he walks through the wide corridors. To him, that place looked like a laboratory. While exploring the area, he observes everything around him. Some researchers present in the castle reported the commander's orders. Approaching, he decides to observe more carefully. Some chambers contain an unusual green liquid. Inside them, dormant A-rank zombies were held. He thinks the zombies outside could be coming from that laboratory. Suddenly, his expression changes upon noticing something. In one of the capsules, there is a woman connected by tubes. The protagonist knew that person. It was Xiao Kai. At that moment, he jumps close to the compartment. Pointing his weapon, he aims at the capsule. Quickly, a pair of scissors comes flying directly at him. Upon being hit, his weapon falls from his hand without firing a shot. The object returns to its owner with precision. To the boy's surprise, the one who threw the cutting object was a violent B-rank claw zombie. Face to face, the two stare at each other without making any moves. Fearing that the pink-haired girl might get hurt, Yan decides to start a hand-to-hand fight with the opponent. Provoking the monster, Zheng says he needed a new haircut. Noticing the commotion, the scientists run to report that there was an intruder. One of the men approaches the alarm, but he is stopped in an extremely violent manner. Next to him, his colleague watched everything that happened. Major Nan Feng approaches to the surprise of the men and orders them not to trigger the alarm. The scientist understands that the zombie would handle the situation with no further concerns needed. At that moment, the scissors are thrown. Confident, the officer observes everything around him. Looking at his watch, he counts exactly 30 seconds. Compared to the battle in Dawn City, the boy's movements seem slower. Frightened, the scientist realizes that the young man managed to take down the guards. The protagonist thinks that man had been secretly watching him the whole time. Determined, the boy states that the selected hero difficulty, which comes with debuffs, weakens their combat power. Attentively, the major doesn't take that answer seriously and asks the boy not to speak so much nonsense at once. Even so, he affirms that it was the pure truth and that no one believed him. Frightened by the scene, the researcher realizes that the major might be conspiring with the enemy. The protagonist demands that the pink-haired girl be released. Nervously, the man states that his job was only to collect research data and report to his superiors. Ignoring that response, the boy points a gun at the man's forehead. His gaze reveals intense fury as he tells him to think before speaking. Intervening in the situation, the major explains that only the commander has the authority to open the chambers. Furthermore, he informs that the capsules are reinforced and not even a bullet could pierce them. So the protagonist decides to use the enhanced shot. Suddenly, the compartment begins to move. In less than a second, the capsule sinks underground. Turning around, the boy sees who is responsible. With his hand on the button, the scientist shows that he was the one who did it. As soon as the chamber descends, the researcher says it was transported directly through a passage to the commander. Upon hearing that, the boy doesn't think twice and shoots the man in the head. His brains can be seen all over the laboratory. Meanwhile, the young man leaves the place determined to rescue the pink-haired girl, while the major questions where he is going. Despite all his combat power, he is warned that he wouldn't stand a chance against the commander, who was S-rank. That situation makes the protagonist increasingly irritated. He thinks that if it weren't for this hero difficulty debuff, he could take on an S-rank. Surprisingly, the major says he will help the boy. Confused, he asks why the commander's subordinate would help him. Additionally, he suspects that man could have acted earlier while watching innocent people being captured for experiments. However, the officer states that they had a common enemy and asks him not to worry about the details. Meanwhile, they attentively observe something through the glass. At that exact moment, the commander was coordinating a parade. Flags were being carried, showcasing the full might of the squad. Lined up, the men marched slowly. The number of soldiers is exorbitant, forming an imposing and intimidating line. A man in a military uniform presents himself, emanating authority and confidence, ready to lead the mission firmly. That was the S-rank zombie commander. The major says his name was Yuan Shu. The major explains that all the zombies from that cemetery were created using corpse techniques commanded by him. With a single movement of his gloved hands, the ground breaks almost immediately. Soon after, the chamber with green liquid is fully visible. Inside the capsule, the girl sleeps peacefully. Desperate, the protagonist sees his friend and shouts her name. The commander declares that on that day they would welcome another zombie soldier, and that his grand plan was to leave that cemetery and kill the humans on the surface. After completing that sentence, a shot hits his head. The zombie commander falls instantly to the ground. Intrigued, the young man can't believe the man was taken down with a single shot. That's why he's confused whether that enemy was truly S-rank. But looking at the zombie formation, he realizes it won't be so easy. In the middle of the soldiers stood the commander. To test the loyalty of his troops, he orders the men to eliminate the assassin. Following his command, they all begin to shoot. Aiming at the building, destruction is evident. The commander watches the scene closely. Even so, a second shot heads toward his head. Meanwhile, the young man uses his skills to defend himself. The commander's technique is to revive the substitute. The major explains that the soldiers he summons can take a lethal blow, dying in his place. Therefore, the protagonist wonders if that could make someone invincible. But the officer says the commander had a maximum summoning radius, so they would have to eliminate the soldiers or push him away from them. Despite this, he says he doesn't know the exact range of that radius and states that the boy would have to find out on his own. The two agree that the warrior would take care of the commander and the major would protect the pink-haired girl. Now, everything was in the protagonist's hands. Starting the next attack, the soldiers gave him a break. The shots hit a bomb he had left behind. At that moment, one of the guards realizes what is about to happen. The C4 was upgraded to Ultra C4, consuming a regular upgrade point. Immediately, the bomb begins to quadruple in size. From afar, Yuan Shu is impressed by the technique. With a bomb that size, he says the young man was planning to blow up the entire block. Shortly after, he moves his hand quickly. His mission was to protect the pink-haired girl. Therefore, he hides the chamber. From above, the protagonist observed all the soldiers. At that moment, he was sure the girl must be in danger. Without thinking twice, he triggers the detonator. The explosion is devastating, launching men in all directions. The destruction caused is immense. A crater forms with cracks spreading everywhere. Observing the aftermath, the boy simply reflects. Curious, he wanted to know what the commander's next move would be after having all his subordinates blown up. His eyes find someone in the middle of the crowd. Under some rocks lies the commander. Wielding his weapon, Jen is determined to finish the fight. However, he notices a hand pulling at his leg. His eyes quickly turn to the right. Lying beside him, a guard was using the corpse technique. Another explosion happens in an instant. Debris flies in all directions, creating deafening chaos and a dense cloud of smoke that obscures the view. The protagonist manages to escape from the top of the building. Upon landing on the ground, he notices a crowd of subordinates. Suddenly, hands try to reach him from all directions. At that moment, he realizes the commander had many hidden soldiers. An explosion of several corpses occurs. The smoke can be seen from afar, forming a dense curtain that covers the scene. Flying through the air, a shot is fired, cutting through the mist and seeking its target, and it pierces through a green water slime with precision. The protagonist finds himself trapped inside that liquid. Confused, he tries to figure out what it was. At this moment, the commander still had many moves in reserve. The major believes the commander never expected that child to blow up all his soldiers at once, so the officer resorted to unleashing the corpse puppets buried underground. However, bullets don't travel very far underwater. Some bubbles emerge from the corpse's hands. Together, they form a powerful sphere, as the fluid extracted from destroyed limbs regenerates infinitely. Meanwhile, the underwater movement continues. Countless bullets can be seen gliding through the liquid. The protagonist knew he couldn't use the precision shot to escape. The only thing he could do for now was swim. His body can be seen swimming underwater. Zen feels desperation as he realizes he can't get out, beginning to run out of air. The major knew he had to intervene immediately to save the girl's life. Raising one of his hands, he uses the corpse technique. However, he realizes he's being watched by someone. Turning his body, he notices something strange. Meanwhile, the girl remains unconscious. That situation was very bad, as an explosion could destroy the girl's life. Even so, it was inevitable and ended up happening anyway. Due to the explosion, a new crater opens. Yuan Shu appears imposing, carrying the girl in his arms. Now Yan Zhen would have to manage alone without the major's help. Underwater, the protagonist begins to lose air. He faints, unable to swim or escape the water. His body begins to float inside the sphere. The commander places one of his hands and tries to listen to the protagonist's heartbeat, which was almost stopping. The officer's idea was to turn the boy into a corpse warrior. A strange force can be felt by the commander, and his eyes widen. An energy emanates from within the water. By consuming another upgrade point, the boy's health is fully restored. The zombie can't believe the human was still alive. Despite having revived, the boy was still trapped underwater, and the boss says he'll kill him as many times as necessary. Yan Zhen states that he could come back to life up to 10 more times, but he had another plan in mind and began to show all his power. To try to escape, he used the Hellfire Core combined with the Cemetery Claw Blade to create a weapon. The Hellfire Blade was a legendary level weapon sharp enough to cut steel. Nervous, the commander begins to understand the threatening situation, so he orders his soldiers to blow the boy to pieces. Without hesitation, his subordinates charge into battle. The zombies try to get closer to the young man. The Zen realizes they wanted to provoke an explosion nearby and use a shockwave to knock the warrior out of there. Wielding his sword, he tries to attack all who approach. Like a whirlpool, he creates something unexpected underwater. Suddenly, a massive explosion occurs and liquid is launched in all directions. At the center, only the boy and his powerful weapon remain. Furious, the captain can't believe that situation was possible. As the commander, he believed no one could stop his great revival. While trying to approach the boy, he fires a bullet in his direction. With his sword, the protagonist slices the projectile in half with no difficulty. A tremendous power begins to spread through the surroundings. A path is revealed, showing the cracks. The young man's expression reveals all his rage. At that moment, everything was sucked into the crater. However, the officer manages to escape death once again and jumps far away. With a smile on his face, he claims he could resurrect infinitely and the enemy would not be able to kill him. At that moment, the protagonist had put away his weapon, appearing to give up the battle. Stating that he would develop a new corpse technique and return, the zombie runs quickly. A blue energy fades from his mouth. Suddenly, his entire body begins to disintegrate. Only a few of his clothes remain untouched by the ashes. The commander does not understand what is happening, since he had switched his body to a puppet. Looking at his arms, he realizes they are still in flames. The sand moves, swallowing his body slowly, as if being consumed. His head is the only part remaining, emerging from the sand. The crater on the ground remains surrounded by blue flaming energy. Shortly after, it begins to spread throughout the building area, showing that the commander had been eliminated. After the battle, the protagonist had obtained the commander's core, making it possible to control an army of corpses. As his hands approach the core, someone else steals it. At that moment, the major quickly appears on the scene. Fascinated, he says he had been waiting a long time for that moment. However, the reward for the battle belonged to Yan Zhen for doing all the hard work. Yun Shou admits to having used the boy for his own benefit. Realizing he was deceived, the boy becomes extremely angry. Changing his expression, the major was already prepared for a new battle. However, something catches his attention. A hand wielding a knife threatened to end the pink-haired girl's life. Without thinking twice, the protagonist tries to stop the act. He holds the girl in his arms and carries her away from the destruction. The great cemetery was closing and additional rewards would be calculated upon exit. At that moment, the sky took on a dark color of red and black. Explosions continued all around. The cemetery began to vanish before the boy's eyes, but he knew he would meet the major again. Meanwhile, he watched the man's departure, who warned him not to remain in his way. The man disappears into the darkness. A small building in the middle of the forest can be seen. Fang Shu is sleeping, sitting at the door of the establishment, until a noise makes him wake up abruptly. With no time to think, he gets up completely startled. Upon observing the scene, his gaze reveals all the terror. The building had been completely destroyed, not a single wall remaining. The cemetery begins to collapse, frightening the boy as the boss had not returned. Looking at the sky, he notices something strange. The protagonist returns, bringing the unconscious girl with him. Fang Shu becomes extremely happy to see that his master was safe and sound. Yan Zhen asks his subordinate not to mention anything he had just witnessed. Understanding the mission, he says he's great at keeping secrets. Handing over a piece of paper, the protagonist asks the boy to bring all the items from the list when he returns from the city. Now his attention was entirely focused on the sleeping girl. Thoughtful, the protagonist seeks to find a place to leave Xiao Kai, but taking her to the city wasn't a good option. On a sunny day, the volcano is covered by some clouds. Apparently, the crater seemed peaceful enough to rest for a while. Being in a very high place, the warrior would have a clear view of the surroundings. The steep slopes make it difficult for common zombies and low-level corpse warriors to climb. In addition, the flat and spacious area would be perfect to build his property after establishing a perimeter against threats. Looking at the system, the boy analyzes the rewards received in the cemetery. Fang Shu calls and informs that he had already gathered all the items requested by his master. However, he couldn't see the protagonist at the designated location. The man was only supposed to leave the truck and return to the city. As he leaves, his colleague seems confused about what Yan Zhen wanted with seeds and toy models. Wasting no time, the warrior heads to the place where the truck is parked. For him, the fewer people who know the exact location of the base, the better. Using his immense strength, he lifts the heavy vehicle. Without the cemetery debuff, he felt much stronger. Now the truck is already at the top of the volcano. Ignoring the system's presets, the young man wanted to try something based on his own preferences. Thus, he released his power and asked for a big house. Instantly, the object increased in size, becoming a beautiful mansion. The protagonist was thrilled to finally get his own house. Inside the forest, a figure was watching everything closely. Enigmatic, she stands completely still while activating her vision. Bags of seeds are scattered across the arid ground. A figure crouches down, holding a sack of seeds. The seeds are thrown into the wind, creating a dark cloud. An explosion of light appears when the grains touch the ground. Suddenly, the seeds transform into delicious fruits ready for harvest. By consuming 9 regular upgrade points, a wide fertile land is obtained with watermelons, apple trees, and peach trees. In that apocalypse of scarce resources, having a mansion like that meant no longer worrying about food. Even so, the protagonist still understood that there was work to be done, such as harvesting. irrigation, and maintenance. He used to kill all the zombies and corpse warriors just to earn upgrade points. He understands that at that moment, it was time to capture a zombie worker. As he turns around, an apple falls from the tree. Quickly, it begins to sink into a black puddle. He feels the tension in the atmosphere, realizing he may have seen something strange. To be sure of what he saw, he uses X-ray vision. However, he can't observe anything suspicious and thinks he might be overreacting. Standing in the water, the warrior finds himself in the corpse swamp. He thinks he passed through that place while fleeing last time. Holding a grenade, he is about to begin his plan. Determination shines in his eyes as he orders everyone to start working and throws the small bomb into the swamp. The explosion is almost instantaneous, throwing water in all directions. As the protagonist watches the scene, bubbles begin to form. Beneath the swamp, something gigantic erupts. The creature was a great corpse warrior, the Plowing Bull. With his sword in hand, the young man awaits the first attack. Determined, he calls his opponent to fight. At that moment, the bull reveals its powers and begins to stir the swamp, trying to hit the boy. A huge explosion occurs, scattering debris everywhere. In the midst of the destruction, the protagonist remains standing. The bull can't believe what's happening before its eyes. The boy manages to defend himself using only his sword to cut off the zombie's head. Meanwhile, the volcano seems to show strange movements. Shocked, the warrior doesn't understand the situation right away. The apple trees start to shake, dropping all their apples to the ground. In addition, some holes form in the ground. The winds continue to accelerate as the young man returns to his home carrying the opponent's head in a sack. Furious, he wants to know who was responsible for that deplorable scene. In the middle of the volcano, no plantation or structure remained. Stealthily, the shadows slipped away unnoticed. However, when trying to escape with the stolen items, the shadow was spotted and stopped by the boy. Jen began holding the sack with items using all his strength to prevent the theft. At that moment, the Black Devourer realizes it will have to defend itself. With its claws, it tries to reach the boy, who manages to dodge. Watching this scene, the shadow laughs with satisfaction. Meanwhile, a bullet flies in its direction. Countering the attack, the boy manages to kick the enemy's face. Suddenly, the Black Devourer is launched far away. The impact is so great, it destroys part of the volcano's base. Smoke spreads and the protagonist can't see his opponent. At that very instant, he feels something crawling across his face. The Black Devourer was trying to invade his body, entering through his ear. Frozen, the boy can't move. Suddenly, a black force hovers over the entire territory. His pants and hair turn white. That corpse technique could steal the target's body. The Black Devourer could also use the stolen black color to create a devouring barrier against him. All the other colors of his body slowly turn black, and the barrier would eventually consume him completely. Realizing he was in trouble, the boy looks around for a way out. Quickly, he begins to run in desperation. At that moment, the green light shone and changed the orange colors to black. The parts that turned white also caused a drop in health, so that barrier used different colored lights directed at specific colors, turning affected areas black and stealing their color. Dev knows that when his body turns completely white, he'll be doomed. Thus, he tries to defend himself using his weapon. But even the bullets had no effect in that place. All his shots turned white. Quickly, the protagonist tried another type of defense and fired several times at the target, but all the bullets were struck by the beams of light. The Black Devourer warned that within that barrier, the number of bullets wouldn't help them escape. That grade-level corpse soldier technique was very difficult. As the green light beam approaches, the boy prepares to use his blade. A blue energy spreads throughout the environment. He tries to use a maximum escape move, creating a small energy circle. The beams of light try to hit him without success. The protagonist is completely protected. The Devourer is surprised to realize that the flame was suppressing its black conversion beam. Frightened, it notices that the barrier was becoming overloaded. Suddenly, the energy tries to create holes in that layer. Shortly after, the energy becomes stronger than the barrier, and the Devourer is thrown out of the environment. Its body is completely surrounded by energy. The protagonist manages to escape and continues controlling those blue lights. Soon after, the Devourer's body transforms into a beautiful girl with black hair. Desperate, she begs him not to kill her, claiming she was just hungry. Curious, he asks how the shadow managed to find the way. The creature explains she had been living near the dead volcano for a long time and waited for the moment when the boy left so she could grab some food. Understanding the situation, the warrior decides to help her. He hands her a package with clothes so she can appear more presentable. The Black Devourer was upgraded and transformed into a subordinate. A beautiful woman appears with her hair in 2 colors. Yan Zhen is shocked by what his eyes see. However, the Devourer's plan is revealed as her goal was to make the boy fall in love and steal everything he owned. Soon after, the young man ordered the woman to restore his entire farm. Meanwhile, he used his powers on the sack containing the bull's head. Immediately, the plowing bull was ready to defend his land and take care of the crops. The corpse would specifically handle the hour and manage the mansion together with the Black Devourer. A powerful light bursts from the animal's body. Calmly, the woman harvested all the fruits that had fallen to the ground. When an earthquake throws her into the air, It was the effort of planning the corpse technique. She is shocked to discover how competitive her farm colleagues were, as everything used corpse techniques. At that moment, she decides to take the situation seriously and show what she was capable of. Quickly, the young woman spreads all her shadows throughout the plantation. The black bodies climb the trees and harvest the fruits. From above, the protagonist watches, thinking he will need to gather more upgrade points to make the farm self-sufficient. A thundering sound draws his attention. Apparently, someone was fighting behind the distant mountains. He tries using his X-ray vision. When zooming in, he sees what was behind the mountains. A woman was standing in front of hundreds of corpses. The patrol team in that area had been wiped out, turning the people into terrifying undead. However, there was a new type of self-destructive zombie. Meanwhile, the monster approached at extreme speed, but the young woman was able to protect herself with a barrier. Using the protection shield, the low-level zombie couldn't even scratch her. A large monster was approaching quickly, but the girl knew teleportation techniques. Without taking long, she got rid of the corpses chasing her. A light radiated entirely from her body. The destruction was complete as she observed carefully. Her expression changes when she hears a familiar voice. Behind her, the man introduced himself as her brother. The young man reveals his face, showing that he was alive. Nanyu gets angry with the man, displaying her fury. She already expected him to say her skin was tanner, which deeply annoyed her. Her punches were so strong that they caused a crater in the ground. Even she was impressed by her extreme strength, but she already knew that her brother had mastered yet another strange corpse technique. It had been a long time since the two had seen each other. Removing the undead from in front of her, he states that being her brother, he was a little hurt by that attitude. The woman seemed to grow increasingly angry. Crying, she realized her brother had been alive all this time and never came looking for her. Touching her head, he tries to comfort her. The major says that as long as she was near the zombies, he would always be able to find her. Despite that, Nanyu had countless unanswered questions in her mind. But he would leave the story for later. His goal was to have his sister join him to destroy Dawn City. Confused, she asks if he would attack the city and kill all the civilians, and he agrees. Horrified, the girl cannot understand how he could end so many innocent lives. The man's motivations were beyond the young woman's understanding. It is explained that 3 years ago, something completely changed Nanfeng's life. The captain was eliminating the undead relying on corpse energy, and he was warned to be careful and not to lose control one day. Shu Hong is introduced as the vice captain of the 3rd Patrol. The major explains that it would be better for her to be prepared not to depend so much on those techniques. The girl was worried about him becoming a berserk corpse since she was counting on him to rise in the rankings. Suddenly, something happens to the young man. His body felt strange and it began to show some side effects. His face changed color and his eyes took on a reddish hue. At that moment, the guards pointed their weapons at him. Confused, he claimed to be on the same side as those men. With no time for explanations, the man was completely gunned down. About to join the elite guard, he couldn't understand why his colleagues were shooting at him. The situation became increasingly complicated and they started using grenades. Quickly, a massive detonation occurred at the scene. Watching carefully, the officer believes it's not possible for Nanfeng to be alive. Despite the certainty, he is completely stunned by what he sees. Quickly, the guard tries to defend himself, but the man is very fast, revealing his skills. In less than 5 seconds, he takes down all the officers. Holding his blade, he realizes he had defeated his enemies. His goal was to kill any human who appeared in front of him. On a highway, cars move peacefully. Inside the vehicle, a girl hands the city lord the latest list of elite guard candidates. The system displays Nanfeng's photos and main data. The sovereign says he knew that boy from the patrol squad, but that he had been rejected countless times for the position. Kifang says his levels have been consistently high during medical exams. Fearing the boy might turn into a furious corpse, the man declares he would rot in the squad. At that very moment, a corpse proximity alert is received. A figure jumps out from the forest and lands on top of the vehicle. Suddenly, the car window shatters into 1,000 pieces. Nanfeng appears with a knife in his hands. The city lord is extremely shocked by what he sees. Wasting no time, the elite guard casts a spell, which sends the man flying. Meanwhile, the car speeds up. The girl pursues the enemy with extreme precision. Now he would come to know the strength of the elite guard. Undeterred, he grips his corpse energy blade. But the woman uses her powers again to attack. Her corpse techniques were something unknown to the man. With one of her hands, she makes a motion. Quickly, the enemy's body is hurled into the air. Her gaze reveals alertness to the environment. Patiently, she waits for the counterattack. But she was already prepared for whatever might come. The guard shields her body by creating an impenetrable barrier. The enemy tries to escape by all means. However, her superior asks her to return and help fix the car. They discuss how, during the apocalypse, getting a luxury car like that was rare, so they decide to repair it. The officer was extremely worried about letting the corpse escape, since it could infect many innocents. Despite everything, the city lord was only concerned that there would be no peasants left to do the heavy work. A warning would be issued in the city, and the lunatic Ren Xin would join the pursuit. A footprint is left on the ground. Wounded, the corpse walks through the city. Ranting, he reflects on his current situation and how he ended up at that point. A tall building displays a large screen. that immediately catches the man's attention. They announce that Nanfeng is dangerous and that anyone hiding information about his whereabouts will be executed. His hands reveal all his rage. He did not consider himself a berserk corpse, but rather the captain of the Dawn City Patrol Squad. As he walks through the streets, people watch. A citizen cannot believe a corpse is walking freely without being stopped by the guards. A woman cannot believe something like that could be the squad captain. At that moment, Nanfeng can't believe what's happening. Suddenly, a gun is pointed at the back of his neck and he's told not to move. Several officers surround him to prevent any escape. Rage begins to spread quickly through his body. Without thinking twice, he escapes through the air, flying. While floating in the air, something hits his face, causing him to fall in free fall. He is launched between buildings. In the end, he hits his back against a wall. As he recovers, a voice begins to speak to him. Ren Xin says he's curious to know how he became cadaverous and still retains some humanity. Nanfeng can't believe the warrior avoided decapitating him, just asked a simple question. Fang Shou's orders were to execute mercilessly. However, the opponent's appearance sparked a new idea in the young man, who thought of pushing beyond his limits. Showing no interest in the conversation, the man asked to be killed, thinking he might lose control again. But dying wouldn't be something so easy for him. At that moment, the fighter uses the Shadow Mirage technique. His powers begin to create a whirlwind. Shortly after, the two disappear. Lost, the man doesn't understand what place that was. Suddenly, a knife pierces his body. His eyes widen, showing all the pain he experienced. Ren Xin binds the opponent's hands with 2 chains while beginning the torture. He was interested in studying every part of the captain's body. The experiments begin with countless cuts being made on Nanfeng's body. The pain is so intense that his eyes nearly pop out of his face. The lunatic notes all his discoveries in his notebook, paying attention to the man's recovery time. He discovers that the key lies in energy release so as not to completely lose his humanity. At that moment, Ren Xin already possesses what he needs to go beyond his limits. Desperate, the captain claims he would kill that madman. Grabbing his sword, the researcher and torturer was determined to finish Nanfeng once and for all. He would cut off the head of the man who was no longer of any use. However, before he could complete his action, an explosion occurs. In the middle of the smoke, a figure can be seen. Ren Xin realizes that the corpse escaped. With quick movements, the man vanishes without a trace. 2 people walk through the forest, leaving a trail of blood behind them. A large weapon is left behind. The woman firmly holds the captain, not letting his body lose balance. Nanfeng doesn't understand why the girl had risked her life to help the most wanted criminal in the city. However, the woman had her reasons stated from the beginning. He thinks she liked him a little, but that's not what she was trying to explain. Noticing the audacity, she punches him while stating she needed him to rise in the rankings and earn money. Now they would need to build their own base outside the city. Before the man could respond, she feels something strange. A bit of blood is spilled. Then he realizes that a knife has pierced Chu Hong's chest. The captain is in disbelief at that scene, showing his intense despair. The lunatic Ren Xin finds the fugitives with ease. Nanfeng runs to try to attack the enemy, but he is stopped by a kick to the face. The man is thrown far away from the two. Quickly, Chu Hong turns to strike her opponent. The vice captain manages to land a cut on the warrior's stomach. Now both of them had deep wounds. Irritated, Ren Xin doesn't like the woman's actions. She tries to provoke him by saying he was getting scared. Meanwhile, the two begin to engage in an intense battle. Both used swords for the confrontation. Their blows were fast and powerful. Still weak, Nanfeng knew he needed to help in the fight. However, he couldn't move, and the woman shouted for the captain to run without looking back. Ren Xin is already prepared for the next attack. Suddenly, Chu Hong's sword is destroyed with a single blow and hits her. Desperate, the officer screams his friend's name. At that moment, he realizes the vice captain is in danger. Now the lunatic warrior comes after him, ready to end his life. But the man showed irritation in his eyes, which left the opponent very confused. Nanfeng managed to dodge the attack, and his enemy fell to the ground, feeling immense pain. His body was completely out of control, and his blood seemed to be boiling. The boiling blood corpse technique mixed his own blood with the enemy's, causing it to dry up and evaporate completely. Crawling on the ground, Chu Hong was determined to finish Ren Xin. At that moment, the lunatic understood the whole plan from the beginning. However, he knew that wasn't enough to end his life. The woman desperately begged the captain to run, for she was sure that in his state he couldn't help. Realizing how weak he was, the man escaped. The skin on Ren Xin's face showed that the technique was working. He wouldn't let the captain escape easily. Even so, he was too weak to get up. His blood continued to be drained from his veins. Even trying every way to fight against it, his body turned into just bones. The vice captain realized that luck was on her side for still being alive. Suddenly, the bones turned into mere branches, and she realized it was a trap. However, it was already too late to escape. With a slash, the warrior cut off her head. Ren Xin was alive, even though he had numerous injuries. Realizing that the captain had fled, he decided to turn all his rage toward that woman. A pickup truck drives along the path, kicking up dust everywhere. The driver asks what the purpose was of searching that area for a whole week, and they say that Master Ren Xin was determined to find that man. Chu Hong's head was placed on a pole to display his invincibility. From afar, Nanfeng watched the pickup truck. He couldn't believe that Bastard was treating his friend that way. Unable to do anything, he was sure that any move he made would be suicide. Angrily, he swore that one day he would place Ren Xin's head on a pole just like that. At that moment, the captain finished telling the story to his sister. He wanted her help to take revenge on the entire Fang family, stating that they all deserved to die. Even so, the girl did not agree with condemning so many innocent lives because of that revenge. Nan Yu asks him to promise to spare the lives of the citizens. Accepting the proposal, Nan Feng smiles. Meanwhile, someone was listening closely to their conversation. Realizing it was something important, they decide to report immediately. Clouds cover the immense volcano. Now the farm looks much more organized and beautiful. The information quickly reaches the ears of Yan Zhen. Reflecting, the protagonist realizes that Nan Feng has enemies in common with him, which could be something favorable. Suddenly, a figure appears at his side. The pink-haired girl seems much better at that moment. Curious, the young man wants to know how her new body was adapting. Wasting no time, the girl shows all her abilities. By breaking an object with a single strike, she immediately hits the bull's head. However, she apologizes to the creature, showing she had no intention of hurting it. Her adaptation seemed very good. After ruining his roof, she would be in charge of commanding the building. With tears in her eyes, she takes responsibility. At that moment, her attention shifts to something else. That day, the sunset appeared extremely red. Apparently, a great battle was about to begin in Dawn City. A fly buzzes among the trees, until it's completely caught in a spider web. While the insect remains trapped, one of the corpses pays attention to what's happening around. Suddenly, countless zombies can be seen heading toward the city's main gates. Alert, the guard notices the approach of the undead. He didn't understand how there could be so many zombies with the patrol taking care of everything outside. Slowly, someone touches his shoulder, asking him to stay calm. It was Captain Wu Fenzhen, who said those low-level zombies couldn't harm them. Outside, the undead observe the people on the wall. Suddenly, they begin to run quickly. Heading for the gates, they try to destroy them. But the officer stated that the main gate was made of 50-centimeter thick manganese steel. The soldier panics when he realizes the zombie's target isn't the main gate. To the captain, it made no difference. Meanwhile, the corpse continued to accelerate. Suddenly, an explosion occurs beneath them. Everything starts shaking and debris is seen flying everywhere. Desperate, Captain Wu Fenzhen is shocked to discover that the undead could cause explosions. Wasting no time, all the others lose their footing. Even with the gate's thick structure, he seems worried about the number of approaching enemies. Explosions begin all along the wall. The craters become larger and larger, with many cracks forming. A few more waves would be enough to completely destroy the wall's base. The next step would be to alert the snipers inside the wall to prioritize and strike the closest zombies. Captain Wu Fenzhen throws himself to the ground. He would personally face all the enemies. With his sharp sword, he cuts through their bodies with just a few blows. A zombie tries to attack him by surprise. However, it is quickly shot down by the snipers. From inside the wall, the men shoot at anything that poses the slightest threat. Shots and more shots are fired in all directions. From a distance, two people observe the destruction. Nan Feng asks the Queen of Fungi to increase the intensity. The corpse technique fungus flowers begins. Mushrooms detach one by one. Coming out of the queen's body, the fungi come to life and head toward the barrier with extreme speed. Shortly after, they take on another shape. The sky fills with shapes resembling paper airplanes. The captain realizes the fungus corpses were attacking the anti-air systems as preparation for the assault. The soldiers desperately fire at the flying objects. However, nothing seems to stop them completely. In a short time, an explosion spreads across the entire territory. Smoke spreads along with debris. On the barrier, the cracks keep growing. The fungi go after the snipers. The soldier realized the situation was bad. Suddenly, a second explosion happened. Now the holes in the wall were even larger. The two attack waves were enough to completely break through the wall's defenses. Apparently, there was a corpse soldier on the other side just as strong as Captain Wu himself. A huge foot supports all its weight on the ground. The rank B corpse soldier, explosive fat, charges forward. On his head, there's an explosive device. To Captain Wu, that enemy seemed extremely dangerous. With determination, the man runs to face the unknown creature. While wielding his sword, he decides to use the corpse technique of 5-point attack. At that moment, a small plane appears heading in his direction. A colossal explosion erupts, lighting up the sky with a deafening roar. The giant creature continues its course toward the wall. Lying on the ground, Captain Wu Fenzhen admits he was reckless in that situation. Each step brings the monster closer to the wall. Taking a giant leap, it gains momentum. Using the strength of its body, it throws all its weight at the barrier. A huge crack begins to appear. In a short time, the impenetrable wall breaks apart. On the other side, the corpse soldier is lying on top of the debris. With one hand, he triggers the explosive located on his head. Realizing his true intent, the guard sees his end approaching. The explosion's impact lights up the area with a blinding flash. Elsewhere, Nan Yu is on her way to her mission. Upon hearing the blast, she realizes her brother made his move. Now she must accelerate the tunnel attack with the help of that one corpse soldier. Looking at the strong creature, the girl doesn't seem sure if it knows how to handle the job. Meanwhile, the city lord was watching the latest events. A man asks if the lord shouldn't hide inside the bunker. Unafraid, he says there's nothing to fear with Fang by his side. The place is surrounded by a large protective barrier. From the top of the building, the woman watches the scene closely. The rank-S elite guard, Fang, uses her powers. Her eyes reveal that a rat is approaching the city. The bunker lid is opened. The two teammates exit the tunnel, heading for the mission. Now the creature must destroy that shield. Suddenly, a strike comes toward the girl, but it is blocked by the corpse soldier. With strength, he holds the sword in his hand and quickly slices the enemy's body in half. However, the creature soon notices another movement. It was a rank A corpse soldier, the Ice Beast corpse. The rank B elite guard is positioned above the wall. Waiting for the perfect opportunity, he leaps to attack. But the beast is already prepared and crushes the man with a single blow. The bone-devouring corpse appears immediately. Meanwhile, a frightened man kneels on the ground. The giant hammer comes with extreme speed, but something blocks the strike instantly. The item launched into the air prevents the civilian from being crushed. The monster is confused when his weapon flies far away. Quickly, the corpse soldier turns his attention to the other side. The rank A corpse soldier Olsen is ready to defend the city from any enemy. That was the perfect opportunity for the young man to escape. Determined, the bone-devouring corpse charges to attack. Gaining momentum, he creates a crater in the ground and begins running at high speed to destroy the officer. His weapon fires countless bullets, giving no time to think. The shots hit the creature, but nothing stops its movement. Its skin is as hard as steel, not leaving a single scratch. The woman would have to change her techniques if she wanted to survive the fight. Quickly, she pulls an axe from behind her belt. With a jump, she releases all their stored energy. The axe triples in size and aims to strike the corpse soldier. Patiently, she waits for the result of the clash. The smoke dissipates into the air, revealing the monster's horns. A giant punch comes toward the girl. Upon impact, her body is thrown far away. Even though she cut off the bone-devouring corpse's head, he was still intact. Wasting no time, the soldier continued the fight with immense pleasure. In her hands, she holds a circular object. Her shield grows in size, being used for protection. The beast cannot penetrate that item, even with all its strength. The battle continues and debris scatters everywhere. With one hand, the corpse calls for his weapon. The hammer flies from the rocks and goes directly to its owner. While preparing for the next blow, the officer waits patiently. Again, she picks up a very small object and transforms it into something 30 times bigger, capable of hitting the creature squarely. Its body is cut in half and its remains fall to the ground. The smoke obscures everything around. This time, she believes she has managed to destroy her opponent. However, a devastating punch comes in her direction, slicing through the air with impressive speed. She finds herself trapped in the creature's hands and becomes desperate upon seeing her situation. Suddenly, a sharp object slices through the air. The hand of that monstrosity is cut off, freeing the young woman who was held. Yan Zhen realizes he is about to be trampled, but the protagonist grips his sword and unleashes all his energy. The blue light strikes the opponent's body with precision. At that moment, the young man gains another upgrade point. The corpse's core was with Man Feng, and unless his body was completely destroyed, it would continue regenerating. Confused, Olsen realizes it is the boy she saw outside the city the other day. With no time for explanations, he leaves. Meanwhile, the corpse soldier searches for a way to destroy the barrier. After defeating the soldiers, Shao Kai was curious to know how that beast would break the shield. With its weapon, the creature slowly approaches. Nan Yu begins to use her powers. In the blink of an eye, something vanishes from everyone's sight. Without leaving a trace, the corpse soldier disappears completely. Suddenly, the monster appears behind the girl, who does not notice its presence immediately. An explosion can be seen from the top of the building. The elite guard uses her powers to protect herself. With one strike, she tries to destroy her opponent. The protective barrier around the building disappears. Xiao Qi walks calmly, unaware that a foot is coming her way. Her enemy was regenerating quickly after that destruction. Without the woman noticing, a weapon is aimed at her back. So the video ends here. If you don't want to miss the next part, activate the notification bell, and see you next time on Tob's channel.